As an engineer, I love that any design idea that I could have can be tested and proven to either work or not work. In my field, when things don't produce the outcomes promised or expected, we throw it out and we make something better, something that will produce the desired outcomes. This is how the world should work. Yet, even with the success of science and engineering in our modern times, societies are still clinging to poorly designed, man-made religions that do not live up to the hype. In fact, for thousands of years, the religions of the world have been actively harming humanity rather than bearing good fruit for them. Rather than benefiting and sustaining the human race, religion has been poisoning it. All God concepts have been a bait and switch for thousands of years. Jesus himself said, if your child asks for bread, would you give him a stone? If your child asks for a fish, would you give him a snake? We've been asking for bread and getting stones, asking for fish but getting snakes, asking for peace but getting wars, asking for leaders but getting charlatans, asking for shepherds but getting predators, asking for truth but getting gaslit, asking for deliverance but getting oppression, asking for equality but getting marginalized, asking for guidance for our family and children but getting child abusers instead. 2,000 years ago, a Jewish reformer stood up against the religious leaders of his day and challenged their inability to produce good fruit, saying, even now, the axe is laying at the root of the trees. Therefore, every tree that does not bear good fruit will be cut down and thrown into the fire. Today, ladies and gentlemen, humanity is at an impasse with toxic and poisonous trees of religion, already dying from the rot inside and the blight at the roots. The axe is now raised with both hands high in the air, glistening in the light of truth and honesty, ready to fell the malignant tree. And we are asking you tonight, can you give us one good reason not to strike the root of this tree and throw it into the fire with the rest of the trash? Can you provide a single shred of evidence that your God even exists? Can you demonstrate that your child-diddling prophet heard from God? Can you demonstrate that your sky carcass savior was actually a Messiah? Can you articulate a single good reason why anyone should buy into a failed God hypothesis? If so, we're eagerly awaiting your call. The show starts now. Welcome. I'm joined today with Armin, our handsome and intelligent co-host, and I'm Justin.
Oh wow. Thank you. That was surprisingly pleasant beginning. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Let's end the show right now. I don't want to ruin the rest of this. This is great. Okay.
I was impressed though with the way your hair just flows and bringing back some memories of my young days of seeing Jerry curls out in the world. It was striking for me.
Well, I'm glad I have that impact. Appreciate that. Thanks.
Well, friends, today is February 23rd, 2025, and I've got a couple announcements first. The Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Now, before we get started, we've got to do some questions of the week. Last week, the question was, name an inappropriate time to claim God is in control. And we had 3 great answers submitted. The third is from I don't know if I can say this name. I think it's Chuck Cadus, says inappropriate time to claim that God is in control. When the meat for today's school lunches might have spoiled because you left the freezer door open since yesterday. And a runner-up from Godwin 7, an inappropriate time to claim God is in control. When leaving your child alone in God's house under the custody of one of God's chosen representatives. And that is a fact. And number 1 from X-Million1704, don't say God's in control during a school shooting. That's pretty hard hitting.
That went dark. We went from funny to extremely dark. It's getting darker and darker. Jesus.
God may be in control, but he's not interested in exhibiting any of that power. Now, our prompt for this week is, what was God doing before he created the universe? And Armin, did you have an answer for this?
Yeah, I mean, I had one answer that I thought it was too 18 plus, so I changed it. So the one that I came up with was, because of it, like, what do you do when there's nothing else? So, and then I thought, like, what does God want? What does God want? And based on everything I read in the Bible and the Quran, God seems to be obsessed with praise. And they're like, well, how do you get praise in the void? And I'm like, well, in the void, you might get echo. So maybe God was just just using that effect, just saying God is great so that he could get the echo and then could hear it back. So maybe that's the only thing I could come up with. Like, yeah, God is great. And they were like, God is great. God is great. God. So you could just hear that. Based on the characteristics of void and God, that I thought these two match, go good with each other. So that's what I came up with. I don't know. Is it good?
It's a very fitting answer for a very narcissist deity, which is what we have described in our books. What was God doing before creation? I said, devising a method that would allow him to knock up his own mother to give birth to himself without violating laws that he would later give on incest relations.
Oh, that's a better one. Actually, that's pretty good. That's good. Yes. I was thinking too much about this. You know what? Yeah, that's pretty much more straightforward. By the way, your opening was really good as well. I just have to say that was a really solid opening. I liked it.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I wanted to tap in a little bit to my old preaching days, but I didn't want to get too carried away. So I scripted.
Get carried away. Why not? I think people love that if you do.
Well, we're anxious to hear your guys' answers to what was God doing before the universe was created. In the comment section, give us your best answer and tune in next week and we will reveal the top 3. And so we'll be looking forward to that. And now we get to take our first call, Armin.
Okay. Which one are you going to pick?
All right, we're going to grab a theist named Tyson. Let's pull him. Theist from Texas. Tyson from Texas. Pull him into the conversation.
Texas. That has a ring. Goes well together.
It really rolls off the tongue. Yeah. Tyson, are you with us?
Hello.
Hello, Tyson. Hello. Tyson, your prompt says that you're asking.
Okay, he died on the cross.
Is this a troll?
Tyson,
are you trolling? Not a very good troll if you're trolling.
No.
Died on the cross. He rose from the dead on the 3rd.
Okay, well, we'll just move on from that nonsense. Maybe we'll get into an actual meaningful call here. All right, let me grab our next in line.
If you want to troll, make it funny or interesting. Like, be original. Like, do something that will make us like, okay, that was a troll, but it was worth it because it was kind of funny and we could laugh or something. Yeah, I mean, not very original, but okay.
I was not impressed with that trolling. I can appreciate a good trolling when it's good. That was not. You should be ashamed. You've embarrassed your mother and your lineage.
I like how calmly you say that. That's perfect. Okay. All right. Yeah.
All right. Let's bring in.
I'm gonna borrow that. Next time I want to destroy somebody, I'm going to copy what Justin just said.
Oh boy, let's bring in our next caller. It's going to be Benjamin from Alabama. Benjamin, you're on the Atheist Experience. Can you hear us? Oh, there you are.
Hey, can you hear
Benjamin? Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Hello?
It says here that you wanted to talk about Lucifer.
Hello?
Benjamin, I think you're having some connection problems.
Benjamin, can you hear us?
Hello?
Benjamin cannot hear us.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Benjamin. All right, Benjamin, if you get better reception later, call on back, and we'll be more than happy to take your call. But we're going to have to move on to somebody with reception that's not on that Holy Spirit Wi-Fi.
I think Benjamin was ready to reveal some juicy secrets about Lucifer, and Lucifer somehow managed to stop this because this would have been. By the way, I always have regarding Lucifer. Like, you know more about the details of the Bible, but can you explain to me why is it so? Is it that Lucifer has such a direct access to us, whispering in our ears, right? And being right next to us when it comes to temptations and everything. But God needs like somebody in the middle, like an intermediate. Like, why wouldn't have God have such a personal relationship with us? Like, why do we need prophets for God, but yet the devil is right here, like all the time? Like God could have done better. God could have had more of a personal relationship, I think, if he wanted to actually. I don't know. I always think about that.
Well, one of the difficulties with the biblical Satan figure in the Bible is that the goal of introducing Satan to the mythology is to bring in a barrier and an excuse to figure out if God is in control, God is all powerful, why is all this evil stuff still happening? And they want to distance God from that evil stuff. And so the more people become wise to how horrific, things actually are, the more you have to make Satan more and more powerful, because this character has to account for all the wickedness. And so you get to a point where Satan is nearly as powerful as God. And as far as I can tell, if the Bible is true, Satan's winning the war. So
yeah. Didn't he say in one of the Gospels in the desert with Jesus that he controls the world? He's ruling the world or something like that. The devil is ruling the world. Something
Satan took Jesus up on the temple and on a high mountain and said that if you bow down and worship me, he'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. And we read in 2 Corinthians 4:4 that Satan is the god of this world, and he's actually blinding people from the gospel truth. Isn't it weird that God would create his own nemesis and allow his nemesis to blind people to the truth that supposedly he wants them to know? But with that, let's grab Benjamin. Benjamin did come back.
Oh, Benjamin's back.
We'll see if the connection's any better this time. Benjamin, we can hear you this time.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Hello.
Benjamin is not with us. All right, sorry, Benjamin. We got to go. All right, we're going to get our next guest in here. We've got Lewis from Pennsylvania. I want to talk about the existence of consciousness and how it points to a God.
I hope this one works, or else the problem.
I know, right? Welcome in, Lewis. Lewis? Sounds like you lost consciousness.
Lewis?
All right.
Is the audio problem from our end? Like, I'm asking.
I don't think.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Lewis,
we got something from Lewis.
Hey, can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me well?
We can hear you, Lewis.
Yes, we can hear you. Can you confirm that you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Okay, see, I knew there was a problem. I think the problem might be from us.
It could be. Let me grab the next guest. We'll see what's actually going on here.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the problem is from our end. Jason is in the chat.
I'm talking,
yeah.
I can't hear you through the phone, only through my headphones, through the video.
Oh, that's interesting.
Can
we got an audio routing issue.
Yeah. So let us know what to do. So somebody tell Lewis to just hang in there until we fix this issue. Oh, he left.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, we can grab our next call. I see Lewis is still in the queue, and we've got another caller in T Mike that wants to talk about some topics. Let's give Lewis another chance here.
I think don't take the call because it's going to have the same problem.
Fair enough. I'm going to grab Mike from South Carolina.
No, I mean, I think all of them are going to have the same problem.
You think all of them are going to have the same one? Yeah. It might be, the case. So yeah, because Mike's not talking and I've got him on the call. Mike, can you hear us? I suspect not.
Should we bring Scott up in the meantime so we could?
We're going to have to
chat. Yeah, until we figured out what to do.
They're saying don't take calls. Okay.
Yeah. Let's bring Scott up. So, Scott, pretend to be a theist and ask us a tough question. Do your best theist impression and ask us a tough question. Oh, even Scott.
I'm just kidding. I can hear you.
That was good. That was fantastic.
But consciousness, of course, points to a God. How could it possibly not?
Obviously.
I can't do any better than that. I don't know. It sounds interesting, though. It sounds like an interesting approach there. I'd be curious to see how they pick that apart.
What is your best steelman, both of you, steelman for a believer?
Uh-oh, did we lose Armin now? Boy, people are just dropping left and right here.
It's because he made the Lucifer horns earlier.
That's
God
it.
took them.
Yep. You
Do you guys hear me?
we can hear you, Armin.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening today. We're all over the place.
Oh, in the chat, they're saying now Armin has been raptured.
Yeah.
But apparently he's back. Apparently he got rejected. He got turned around at the door.
I think, guys, this is the closest proof for the existence of God that we will ever get at this show. This whole.
Yeah.
You have a point.
This was it. We were waiting for proof, and I think we got it.
Although I think God missed like 25 years worth of phone calls.
Well,
guys,
better late than never, right?
I just beat Jesus in resurrection time, right? How long did it take me? I think it took me like 3 seconds. Took Jesus 3 days. It took me 3 seconds. There you go.
That's because he was so hung.
Yeah. By the way, what's up with the 3 days? I counted 2.5 days when I was reading the Bible. Why is it everybody says 3 days? Is it actually 3 days or 2.5?
At best, if you're being charitable, if you're reading the synoptic gospels and not the Gospel of John, because if it's John, it's only 2. But if you're reading the synoptics, you can get to a part of 3 days and only 2 nights. You'll never get to 3 days and 3 nights.
Yeah, I always thought it was on the 3rd day, right? Rather than 3 days.
So this is
right. So but Jesus says that he'll be in the ground for 3 days and 3 nights.
Oh, okay.
Which is the problem, yeah. If he hadn't said that, no one would be having this conversation.
Right.
So add that to the list of things Jesus got wrong. Is that what you're saying?
Well, so many things. All right. I'm seeing that they think they got the audio routing issue resolved. So let me grab our first in. We'll bring them in the order that we were trying to get them in, so we give everyone a chance to talk.
Oh, we dropped Scott like he didn't even matter. We just used him, and then we just dropped him right away as soon as we were done with him.
We've got Benjamin with us from Alabama. How you doing, Benjamin?
Hey, is this popularity?
Benjamin, can you get a little closer to your mic? It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
Yes.
Benjamin,
well, I'm literally having to hold the phone up to my mouth, so I don't know if it's my microphone or what it is, but
that's how phones work. So it says here that you wanted to talk about Lucifer and that you're a theist, correct?
Yeah.
Awesome. And what's on your mind today?
Well, I'm kind of debating becoming an atheist, but I'm still clinging on to the God thing. I mean, I think he's an asshole, but I'm more of a Gnostic, and I thought about just talking about the history of Lucifer, just in general, like the Inferno book and stuff like that, where the horns and crap came from and all that. And I know y'all probably know all that already, but I guess, I mean, I guess I could talk about the pros and cons of becoming an atheist.
Well, I mean, we're already
without-
atheists, so you don't need to convince us. We're trying to find people that want to put up a robust discussion as to why we shouldn't be atheists. I mean,
But
we
it's
can.
okay.
Okay.
We can get you
might
over that
get
finish
Benjamin
line.
to see. Yeah, we might help Benjamin decide whether he wants to go all the way. So what do you think the pros and cons are?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, if I become an atheist, that means I wouldn't believe in an afterlife.
Okay.
So, I mean, everything I do on Earth would just be, that's all, you know, I wouldn't really,
So Benjamin, here's a question: Do you care whether or not what you believe in matches reality, or do you, even if there is no afterlife, would you rather still think there is an afterlife for the sake of feeling the meaning that it gives to you and the sense of like let's say, for example, there is no afterlife, okay? If there is no afterlife, would you rather have a belief that matches reality, or would you rather still believe in an afterlife even if there wasn't one, for the emotional feeling of safety and security and meaning that it gives you in a world that there is no afterlife?
I would believe in an afterlife. I think I told you about this before, and you mentioned to me about how our perception can trick us, and that was a while back. But because I remember that conversation.
But answer my question. Do you want your beliefs to match reality, or do you want beliefs that makes you feel good regardless of matching reality? Like, what's your goal here? Let's identify your goal, right? Do you care about actually knowing, like having beliefs that are closer to reality or not?
Well, I don't have no way to really. Well, I mean, I've died before and saw stuff, but I don't know if that was my brain tricking me or not. I would rather believe in an afterlife to make me feel comfortable, but I still think. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would believe in an afterlife to make me feel comfortable, I guess, but I mean, that's not the only belief I have. I mean, most of my other beliefs match reality, so.
Okay, do you want this one to match reality or not? Do you want, like, let's say there is no afterlife. Would you prefer to be fooled into believing in an afterlife, or would you want to know the truth? Let's say in the world that we live in, it's a world without an afterlife. Once you're dead, you're done, right? Would you prefer to be fooled and believe that there is an afterlife, or would you prefer to know the truth?
Well, I would say that I would rather believe there is, but if there isn't, I'd be pretty pissed about it. But
so you rather be fooled. You rather be fooled because of the sensation that gives you, right?
Kind of.
Okay, so you're calling us to figure this. Yeah, go on.
I'm still living on Earth as if there is no afterlife, because for all I know, the world could end, like COVID and all that crap that happened. I mean, I don't know when the world's going to end necessarily. And, I mean, I try to live every day like my last, or at least the best I can.
What is the emotional security that you get from believing in an afterlife? Like, why do you think, like, believing, what sensation does that give you that you prefer to believe in it if there is an afterlife?
Well, it's more because a lot of my family died, and so I prefer to think that they're still with me in a sense. But
I understand. I completely understand.
So for me personally, at least, if I died today or whatever, I would at least die knowing that I had a good life, but
yes,
or at least a decent one. but I don't know
Can I
if
ask you a
there is
question?
an afterlife or not. What?
Right, that's what I want to know about. Like, because it's assumed that there might be a God out there. I mean, obviously we have no evidence for it, but even if there was, that wouldn't necessarily mean that there's an afterlife. It very well could be just a God out there that thinks that we're, like ants in an ant farm, and that's the end of it. So like even clinging on to this idea that there could be a God doesn't actually get you to the afterlife. In fact, you can actually believe in an afterlife without God. You can have that belief. It could be
Really?
just a naturalistic. It could be a naturalistic phenomenon. Yeah. Now, to be clear, there's no evidence for it, and zero. But what I'm suggesting is you've linked the idea of an afterlife and God together, and I don't know if they actually have to be linked. And I think you're saying that God must exist because I want to believe in the afterlife, but that's not necessarily true. And I think Armin and I would both also argue that neither one of those are in accordance with reality. And I think humanity is better off believing things that are true, not things that are comfortable.
Completely agree, Justin. But I think like Benjamin is the most self-aware, honest theist I've ever met. He's saying Benjamin, I congratulate you. You completely understand that the only reason why you're holding on to these beliefs is out of an emotional desire to see your family members who have passed away. Like, you completely understand that this is not based on a logical, like, it doesn't make sense. This God that you studied seems like an asshole. None of this make any sense, but you are holding on to it for emotional reasons because you really want to see. It's just too hard to admit that you're not going to see your loved ones ever again. Like, this is very self-aware and very honest. I mean, I'm impressed. I mean, it doesn't make it true.
I'm a lot more intelligent than the average person, but that's
and more honest, I would say.
Definitely more honest.
I mean, but yeah. But you realize that wishing, like, the problem is that the universe doesn't bend to our desires, right? Like, the things that we want it's not going to be true just because we want them to be true. That's the problem, right?
Well, my idea behind that was if reality is, brain chemicals and things that we perceive, then if I die and my brain is still going for, whatever amount of time, then I would at least be able to see something. I don't know if that would be a good or bad thing, but, at least I would have some kind of activity after I die. I don't know really what that would be, but I know that
the brain chemicals
brain studies on it.
Yeah, those go on for only a little while, and then once the brain rots, there's no more brain. Like, the brain chemicals, for them to continue doing the chemical reactions, they require a functioning brain to do that, right? So without the brain function, like when there's no oxygen going, once the heart stops pumping oxygen to your brain, you need the oxygen to be able to continue doing those chemicals that you're referring to. Once so it's not going to continue doing those chemical reactions. But Benjamin, given that this is more of an emotional thing rather than logical, I will tell you something that because my mom died from cancer, and that was devastating.
Yeah,
and a lot of people told me, yeah, and a lot of believers came to me and told me, like, wouldn't you rather believe in God and an afterlife, because that would mean that you get to see your mother? And I think a lot of people forget that this whole religion, it comes with a package, and so the afterlife actually comes with hell, right? It's not just heaven. So even from an emotional perspective, I feel so good knowing, I mean, yeah, it is devastating that I'm never going to see my mother again, but it's also so good to know she's not being tortured. It's also, do you understand how reassuring that is, to know that there's a sadistic God is not torturing my mom because she didn't pray, she didn't fast, she didn't believe, she didn't go to the mosque.
since you mentioned that, according to most Christians and the ones that I've spoke to, that I've had family kill themselves, I've had family overdose, I've had family die from cancer and all kinds of other stuff. And a lot of Christians say, oh, well, that's not God doing it, that's Lucifer. You know, but originally hell was supposed to be for angels anyway. It wasn't supposed to be for humans. So, but... I mean, the hell in the Bible, if God is omniscient, when he created it, he knew he was going to send humans there. So like you're quoting Matthew 24, but in Matthew 24, literally the same passage you're quoting from says that he's going to send a bunch of people to hell. Like human beings are going to be sent to hell, which means it doesn't matter who it was created for. You know, the moment it was created, God knew he was sending people there. If he's actually omniscient, yeah, and all-knowing, that's...
Yeah, and again, we don't like if all of this is real, you don't even know. Okay, but Benjamin, let's say if any of this is real, we don't know which scripture is the right one. It could be none of them. It could be like something that nobody's paying attention. Like the thing is that if you want to consider this world to be have any chance of actually being true, you're basically the possibility of all your loved ones being in hell is there also. Right. So when you cross over the afterlife as something that you believe in, what?
I believe all of them's in limbo, not hell. I mean, some people would say it might be.
You don't know, but I'm just saying this is just we're in La La Land right now. Okay. We are basically in the world of magic and fantasy, right? So once you could say they're all in limbo, okay? A Muslim will say like, "Yo, well, they're not Muslim, so they're all in hell." A Christian could say, "No, they're all in heaven," or another Christian would like, "Well, no, they didn't believe in the right type of Christianity, so they're all in hell." Okay, I'm just saying the possibility of them being in hell all of a sudden is also introduced if you believe in afterlife. So at least you could be. If there is no afterlife, you could actually be at peace knowing that, yes, they're not there, but their pain is also gone. They're experiencing nothing. They're experiencing no pain. Maybe you don't get to see them, but they are. And also, here's the thing: you had an opportunity to be with them. I think the healthiest way of looking at them is realizing how lucky you were to have that moment that you have with them, instead of being so sorry about the moments that you're not going to have with them. You were if you look at it, the chances of you being alive and them being alive, the odds of it is astronomically low. Like you were given, and you didn't get to be with them for billions of years before you were born and they were born, right? The fact that the universe ended up working in a way that you get to experience being with them for a while, that by itself is so precious. And I think you should just keep your focus on how precious that was instead of what you didn't get. There are many opportunities for love and appreciation that so many potential living beings didn't get. And many people got it much less than they. Many horrible things happen to many people, but the fact that you love them so much that you want to see them again, that means you had something special there. There was something very special there. And you could celebrate how special that moment was instead of constantly being sad over the moments that you didn't have. Just focus on the moments that you did have.
Well, what else? Well, that was pretty much the only barrier I had to, I guess, becoming an atheist was, that and my surroundings. I mean, everybody around here is, God-fearing, church-going, yada, yada, Bible Belt, whatever. But my belief system is so far left field that nobody would really care what I believe anyway.
You're a heretic for most Christians. Yep.
Yeah. And actually, not even Gnostic, but just a lot of the other old religions was also prosecuted.
Of course, right.
Too, at the start of.
Yeah, so like you're going to hell in basically every religion that has a hell right now. So I'm not sure holding on to this God concept is actually helping you.
Well, highway to hell. But, yeah. Well, see,
listen,
I guess, and I'm pretty old, so that's kind of it's not really an old reference for me, but a lot of people, they wouldn't get that reference, but little Nicky. But anyway, that was about it. I mean, other than that, and I don't know how people would react if I told them I was an atheist, so kind of putting it out there. I don't know. I'm not sure how to go about it,
Well, your personal beliefs are your personal beliefs. You don't owe them to anybody.
Huh.
And by the way, welcome to the dark side. We're glad to have you. Benjamin, you're one of us now.
Eventually, you'll feel comfortable. Like, there will come a point where you're okay saying it, but don't let anyone force you into it.
Yeah.
One of us.
I'll send you an atheist coffee mug when you're in the club.
Well, see, it's not as bad as what people think it is, because atheism, I guess it depends on y'all's stance. I'm not going to speak for every atheist. But for some, atheism is just the belief or lack of belief in the God based on evidence. If you take the scientific approach to it, there's no really good evidence for God other than the Bible. But the Bible, proves the Bible, and then you get into a whole loop on that, self-fulfilling prophecy and all that crap. So,
right.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I'd be better off just not believing in God. I'd still believe in an afterlife. I just wouldn't believe in a God. So,
sure.
I don't know if
that still makes you one of us, by the way.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. Yeah.
So,
what do you think is worse, a Gnostic or an atheist?
Depends on who you're talking
to. Did you hear me?
Right. Yes, we can hear you. But go on. You go ahead.
Benjamin, really appreciate you coming up. We've got a full list of callers wanting to get in, but we thoroughly enjoyed getting to talk to you for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, you're a great Benjamin. Whatever you believe in or don't believe in, you're a great guy. Okay, just know that. Okay, so don't let anybody give you shit for what you believe in or don't believe in. You're a good dude.
Well, a lot of people judge me based on appearance and other stuff, and I tell people the truth, and then they say I lie because they don't believe what I tell them. So, even though I'm telling them the truth, but
right.
Well, you don't need them, okay? If they judge you like that.
I guess.
All right. Well, thanks for coming up. We appreciate it.
Again later, Benjamin. So we're gonna let you go, but call us again later if you have any updates on your journey. Okay.
I think you dropped.
What happened? Okay. All right.
All right, on to the next. Okay, so we've got a call from Georgia. We're going to bring in Simeon. Simeon, you're on the Atheist Experience. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Doing good. Thank you for asking. It says here that Christianity provides a better explanation for the world that we live in than atheism. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I kind of wanted to change that statement. Not that I don't believe it, but I just kind of wanted to talk about something different, if you don't mind me doing that.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to change it to, if you can.
Before you change it, let me just tell you that statement was. Can I just identify one flaw in that statement? You say atheism doesn't provide. You say Christianity gives a better explanation for the world we live in than atheism. Atheism doesn't actually provide any explanation for the world. Atheism is just a lack of belief in God. Once you don't believe in God, maybe you go find other tools better than religion to provide explanations for the world. But atheism on itself does not provide any explanation. Okay. All right, go ahead.
That's correct. Yes, sir. As I was saying, I mean, I just think that, and my question would be, can you point out, or just like, what are your objections to the Bible? I know a lot of people say, you know, the Old Testament God is hateful. He doesn't seem like a loving God. And my claim would be he actually is, if you take the Bible in context.
Well, I mean, as it turns out, I've read every last word of the Bible, and I don't find that to be the case. You probably like the New Testament idea of God, but you don't like the Old Testament idea of God. But I think my biggest complaint with the Bible is that it just says things that are demonstrably untrue, and it says it over and over again. And we've got this guy in the Bible named Jesus, and according to the Bible, Jesus fulfilled, you know, dozens and dozens of messianic prophecies. But when I actually read the Bible, I can't find a single messianic prophecy that he actually fulfilled. And when I go to the Gospels and it tells me that he fulfilled certain prophecies, it's actually pretty clear that he didn't fulfill them. Like, the Gospel authors are actually just lying to you. Like, if you go to Matthew chapter 21, there's a prophecy that's fulfilled when Jesus rides 2 donkeys into Jerusalem. Now, I don't know how you ride 2 donkeys. I don't know if he was planking across the top of them or straddling 2 at once, but he's riding 2 donkeys in Matthew chapter 21. And it says, this took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. Tell the daughter of Zion, look, your king is coming to you, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. But if you actually go back to the passage where this originates from, Zechariah chapter 9, the prophecy is not about a guy just riding a donkey. It says, rejoice greatly, O daughter Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. And what does he do next? It says he will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the war horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow will be cut off. And he'll command peace to the nations, and his dominion shall be from sea to sea, from the river to the ends of the earth. So this simply was not fulfilled just because Jesus rode a donkey into town. The prophecy is about an actual king, which Jesus never was, who's going to end all war in Israel, which he never did.
Okay. So, all right. Thank you. All right. So when we look at the Bible, right, it's important that we know the context, and we also see that it might be prophecy, right? So you're saying that Jesus wasn't a king, right? Right?
Not one day.
That's what you're claiming. Even though that's the point, right? Yes, they believe that Jesus was not the king. He was not the Messiah. But if you study the Bible, and in Revelation, right, we see that Jesus, he is a king in Revelation, right? So the idea is that there are some prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. Then, like, for example, riding into the city on a donkey, he fulfilled that prophecy. But
he didn't.
The Jews did not understand it at that time. Okay.
I rode a donkey. Am I the
Jews
Messiah?
At that time did not. No, you're not.
Okay, so did I fulfill Zechariah 9:9?
No.
But I rode a donkey.
Okay. Look. Let me help you out on like how prophecy works, right? So if I say, hey, so the prophecy says that a man is going to ride into the city on a donkey, right?
It doesn't say that. It says a king.
If a man
king is going to do that, and Jesus was never a king, not one day. In fact, there was a king on the throne when Jesus was alive, and it wasn't him.
Yeah, but listen, look, you don't have to be presented as a king for you to be a king. You can still be.
You don't have to be an actual king to be a king. If I told you that I'm the president of the United States, is it true just because I said it?
Listen. But look, you have to listen to what I'm saying. You don't have to be acknowledged as a king for you to be a king.
Well, that's not true.
I'm saying they did not have to acknowledge. Okay, it simply is true, right? If you have a kingdom,
I'm the king.
Right, people make. Okay, but listen, look, that, I mean, you're just saying that.
Am I a king?
The Jews did not. Say again?
Am I a king, Simeon?
I don't know.
Oh, shoot. I'm the Messiah. I rode a donkey. I claimed I'm the king. I'm the Messiah now. I'll take your tithes and offerings.
I mean, listen.
So you
look,
see,
that's a little
the
different
problem here
because-
is
because you
that the
claim to-
prophecy says he's going to be a king, and it says he's going to do things. He was never a king, and he didn't do any of the
Right.
things that he said he was going to do. And then Matthew actually straight up lies to you as well, talking about like other prophecies. So if you go to the book of Matthew, it claims that he's fulfilling Hosea chapter 11, verses 1 and 2. But if you go to Hosea chapter 11, this is when Joseph and Mary take they take Jesus into Egypt, and then they leave Egypt subsequently after the death of Herod. Says this was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, out of Israel I've called my son. That is from Hosea chapter 11, which reads, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. The more that I called them, the more that they went from me. They kept sacrificing to the Baals and offering incense to the idols. There's not even a prophecy there. There's no prophecy in those two verses. And it's clearly a reference to Exodus chapter 4, verse 22, when God says, Israel is my firstborn son, and he's taking them out of Egypt. So again, Matthew, the Gospels are lying to you when it says that Jesus fulfilled prophecies. Half the prophecies in the Gospels aren't even prophecies, and the ones that are were not fulfilled.
Okay, so look, we're moving around a lot, right? Look, if you don't mind me going back to the point that I was making, right? So if you can't understand this part, you're not going to be able to understand anything, right? But let me make sure you understand. Look, did you understand what I said when I said you do not have to be acknowledged as a king to be a king, right?
Cool, then I'm the king. Do you acknowledge that I'm a king?
Listen, no, I don't acknowledge that you're a king, but listen, you very...
I am. I said so. You don't have to acknowledge it. I'm the king, whether you acknowledge it or not. Armin, do you think I'm the king?
I'm willing to accept you as a king if you.
Well, there we go. I'm the king, guys. You see how silly that hermeneutic is?
You are becoming king. A lot of people are acknowledging you being a king in the future.
Well, I mean, the lies that you have to tell yourself to stay in this religion is wild.
Okay. All right, look, let me put it to you this way, right? I mean, I don't know why you can't understand this, right? If somebody claims to be God, right? Oh, hey, I am God. Does that make them God? Answer that.
And if somebody claims to be king, does that make them king?
Come on, wait. Why does it not make them God? Just because they claim to be God?
You can claim to be anything. You can claim to be a teapot circling Jupiter. It doesn't make it true. The question is, what is in accordance with reality, not what can someone claim to be.
There you go.
So you're proving my point, which is that claiming to be a king doesn't make you a king. Actually, being a king is what makes you a king. Just like I can say I'm the president, but I'm not a president until I'm in that Oval Office and writing my name on official decrees. So just saying that Jesus is a king doesn't make him an actual king.
Bam. Listen, look, you got a part of it, right? Now let's look at the full part. As I said, if you read the entire Bible, right, which you claim to have done, right? Listen, you should.
Not only have I read the entire Bible, I've got 2 actual degrees in biblical studies. So just so you know, like, this is not going to go well for you.
Okay.
Oh wow!
So you should know. So look. So you should know that in Revelation, right, it says that he is the King of Kings, right? The Lord of Lords. So what does that refer?
Why do I care what Revelation says?
Okay, Jesus being... Tell me. Excuse me?
Why do I care what the book of Revelation says?
All right. So now you're saying what? You don't care what the book that talks about the person.
Listen to what I'm saying is you're saying that Jesus was a king because the book of Revelation says so. If I wrote a book saying I'm the king, does that make me a king?
Listen, look, I already went through this. No, that's obvious. I think we...
Okay, so the answer is no. The answer is no. If I wrote a book or somebody else wrote a book about me saying I'm the king, that doesn't actually make me the king, does it?
Yes, I agree. I think we both understand.
Cool.
That part.
So before I care what is written in the book of Revelation, you have to demonstrate that I should care what is written in the book of Revelation. For the same reason, if I started quoting the Book of Mormon to you, it would be...
Can I say something?
if I was quoting the Book of Mormon to you, it would be up to me to convince you why you should care why I'm quoting the Book of Mormon. That's how these claims work. So when you're saying Jesus fulfilled prophecies from the Old Testament, you have to first give me the actual reason why I should believe when the New Testament says he was something, that he actually was something, when the New Testament actually says the opposite. When we read the historical narratives, he actually wasn't the thing that they're saying he was. They're saying he will be that thing in the future.
I think we're going in circles, but Simon, do you not understand what's like? This is pretty straightforward what Justin is saying. Like, I don't know why you're not getting it.
Yeah.
Can I quickly? Justin, is it okay? Because he was talking about the kindness of God. Is it okay if I ask him about that? Because even if, assuming that the Bible is true, Simon, hold on one second. Assuming that the Bible is true, okay, I don't understand how you saw the God of the Bible as a loving, kind God. Can you explain that to me? Because I don't think it requires a lot of biblical knowledge to see that the God of both the Old Testament and especially the New Testament is actually a cruel and unloving God. It's interesting how a lot of people think the God of the New Testament is actually nicer than the God of the Old Testament. I consider the God of the New Testament to be so much worse. I don't know if Justin agrees with that, but how do you see the God of the Bible to be a kind and loving God, assuming if it's true?
Okay. All right. Perfect. All right. This is easy, right? So, right. So we see from Genesis to Revelation, right? We see God working, right? Some people say that God in the Old Testament is different than the God of the New Testament, right? I don't believe that. I believe that they're the same God. Jesus even references to that, right? So the idea that Jesus is the same and that God is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, right? That idea. So the concept why I would say that God is perfect, loving, and cares for people is this. He gives a plan for redemption, right? We see that throughout the plan of Christ, right? When he tells Eve, hey, you will have a son. Essentially,
we know the story.
Pretty much that is a prophecy about. Go ahead.
We're asking about the part where he's loving because, like, when I read the Bible, he's not. In fact, he created every human being with their default position, hell.
Redemption from what? He provides a path for us to get redemption from what? Like, what are we being saved from? Exactly.
Okay. Redemption from eternal damnation.
Oh, who decided that was going to be a thing? Sorry, go ahead, Armin.
No, yeah, exactly. No, you read my mind. Eternal damnation. Why from that he created for us, right? So he's basically saying that, hey, I'm going to save you from myself. So like God is basically in the Bible is saying that believe in me. So and we were like, why? So that I could save you. And then we're like, from what? It's like, from myself, from the things I'm going to do to you if you don't believe. So he basically is a solution to the problem, to that unbelievably cruel problem that he created.
Okay, hey, look, I have a question for you, right? Since you had your
are you going to respond to what he said, or just going to like dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge?
No, I will. No, I will. So listen, it's very simple. I want to ask you a question. Look, but listen, I have to ask you this question for me to answer your question, for real. Right? What is sin? I have a question. That's the question. What is sin?
Is a made-up disease? Is a made-up disease created by religion to come up with selling us a made-up cure?
No. Okay, no. All right, listen.
Yes.
What is sin according? Listen. What is sin according to the Bible? Because
according to the Bible, the word sin just means to miss the mark or to not get it completely right. So are you suggesting that the fact that human beings sometimes make mistakes means that we should all be thrown into the hellfire?
Okay, look, let me help you out, right? A more theological sound definition for sin would be anything opposed to God, right? Anything.
That's not in the Bible. Give me that Bible verse, you liar. Revelation 21:8, liars go to the lake of fire. Don't be lying on the Bible on this live. I will call you out on it.
Listen. Okay, I mean, you're welcome to try to call me out on the Bible. I didn't say that it was a verse. I said that's what the definition is, right? According to the Bible. If you study the Bible,
It's not in the Bible.
that the verse that
That's not in the Bible.
I just said there's not a there's not
Do you
a
know what?
verse.
Do you know what a
says that.
lexicon is?
I'm saying I don't.
Okay, a lexicon is basically a
look,
definition. We have lexicons for both Greek and Hebrew. We can look up the words in the Bible used for sin and actually find out what the intention of the word is. So that's why almost all biblical scholars agree that sin is exactly what I recited to you. It's missing the mark. It's not getting something completely right. That's what it means. What you're suggesting is something that's not actually in the Bible, which is why if you're going to keep saying it, I'm going to demand that you actually show me where it's at in the Bible or show me what lexicon I can find this definition in.
Simon, why did we make it simple? Okay, according to the Bible, Simon, if you do not believe in Jesus, okay, let's say you're a good person, you take care of your family, you are take care of poor people or anybody who needs help, you haven't been harmful to anybody as much as as careful as it could be. You're just decently a good person, and you try to be as kind as possible to the people that you know.
Yes, you don't have to explain.
And you don't believe in Jesus. Hold on, I'm not finished. And you do not believe in Jesus. Okay? According to the Bible, do you go to hell?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And this is your God that you believe in. This is the loving God that you believe in. A person that has just been a genuinely decent, good person that doesn't believe in Jesus as his Lord and Savior is going to get burned, tortured for thousands of years, has worms eating its eyes. Absolutely. And if this is your definition of love, me and you are not speaking the same language, Simon.
Yeah, it sounds like he needs a new dictionary.
Okay.
I mean,
Right,
but then again, his God does endorse slavery, rape, genocide, kidnapping of people. Yeah, I would expect that. Yeah, if you believe in this God, you would think that eternal suffering for merely being imperfect would be a good thing.
Right. So listen, I mean, this is crazy. I like having this conversation.
Yeah, we're being crazy. You're calling a God that is so petty and so pathetically weak and self-centered and evil that tortures people for eternity. Just because he's not being worshipped. You're calling that a loving God, and we're the one who's being crazy here. Okay, Simon. Sure. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay. Listen, look, it's very simple. If you sin, right, you must be eternally separated from God. Why? Because of the weight of sin. See, look,
who decided what the weight is?
Stand exactly like God. Listen.
Okay, so then it has nothing to do with your sin. It has to do with God's decision. So we're back at square one. So the way this works is that God decided, he in his own head said, when these imperfect people are going to be the thing that I created them to be, because you can't be anything but imperfect. Only God can be perfect. He said, because these imperfect people are imperfect, they have the sin nature, I'm going to send all of them to hell for eternity. That is the weight of the sin that God decided. There's not like some intrinsic factor having to do with sin. God created sin. He created the concept of sin. He created the consequences for sin. You can't keep pushing the buck to somebody else other than God. It all comes back to God.
Okay. Listen, I want to read something to you real quick. All right. I want you to go to Ezekiel 28.
I love Ezekiel. Ezekiel is one of my favorite passages. In fact, Ezekiel 37 proves that Jesus was not the Messiah, because it tells you what the Messiah is actually going to do. He didn't do it. I'll read it to you. It says, they shall never again defile them. Ezekiel 37, Ezekiel 37, they shall never again defile themselves with their idols and their detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. I will save them from all their apostasies to which they have fallen, and I will cleanse them. They shall be my people, and I will be their God. And my servant David will be king over them. They will have one shepherd. They shall follow my ordinances and be careful to observe my statutes, and they will live in the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, in which your ancestors lived. They and their children's children shall live there forever, and my servant David will be their prince forever. Until there is a messianic king on that throne, the Messiah has not come. You keep saying Jesus was a king, but he wasn't a king. He wasn't a Messiah. He didn't do anything that the Messiah was supposed to do in the Old Testament.
I have a question.
And what you're about to tell me is that when Jesus comes back, he'll do this stuff. But if he didn't do anything the first time he came, I have no reason to believe he's going to do anything when that sky carcass comes back from the clouds.
All right, listen, I have a question. Why do you keep going back to different? Listen, we can only talk about one thing at a time. We can't be talking about sin and
Simon, you're the one who like keeps.
You can't be.
You know how many times you shifted the topic?
I go to Ezekiel 28 verse 15, and you're talking about what we were talking about like 8 minutes ago. I was still talking about my point about why. Okay. All right, so if you can, go to Ezekiel verse 28, or chapter 28, verse 15.
You're not going to like this. You actually know what Ezekiel 28 is about?
Okay.
Have you bothered to read the whole chapter?
I'm not. I want to read.
I know you haven't actually read it. I know. Chapter 28 of the book of Ezekiel is a proclamation against the king of Tyre. Do you think that the king of Tyre is here to hear these words right now?
All right, listen, look, that's a common misconception. Let me help you out.
It's not a common misconception at all. It's the widely accepted view, because that's literally what it says. The word of the Lord came to me, mortal, say to the prince of Tyre. This is a message to the prince of Tyre.
Hey, I have a question.
And he's about to spout some nonsense about Satan.
14. Listen, what does verse 14 say?
I called him on it.
That applies to,
oh my God. Listen,
so
I have a question. Does verse 14
verse 14 is not about Satan.
Mortal man.
Verse 14 is using common mythology that was known to the king of Tyre. Namely, it's paralleling what we find in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Lay out the Epic of Gilgamesh against Ezekiel 28, and he's taunting the king of Tyre using his own mythology, making fun of him. The cherub that was in the cedar forest in the Gilgamesh epic was there to protect the holy mountain of God, and the cherub was killed by Gilgamesh. He's making fun of the king of Tyre. Has nothing to do with your God, has nothing to do with Satan, has nothing to do with sin.
Yeah,
and this would contradict.
Listen, no.
This would contradict your view of Satan if this was about Satan, because Jesus himself says that Satan was a liar and a murderer from the beginning, and that there is no truth in him. So Jesus knows that Ezekiel 28 is not about Satan, because Satan was a liar and a murderer from the beginning. You cannot apply Ezekiel 28 to the figure of Satan. And it's also irrelevant because it has nothing to do with why God is sending human beings to suffer eternally in hell.
So can I talk now?
Yeah, usually the time to talk is not in the middle of our sentences. Like typically we try to wait for you to finish what you have to get out, unless you just go on a tangent. So
I mean,
I assume you're old enough to know how conversations work.
Ouch.
Okay, so now that I can speak, listen, Isaiah, look, the book of Isaiah. Okay, so look, you're saying, oh, it has nothing to do with the Satan of the Bible. Listen,
Let me guess, Isaiah 14?
Say that Satan was the. Okay. Oh wow. Why does it say that?
It doesn't say Satan.
Anointed cherub. The cherub.
It doesn't say that.
Why does it?
It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. You're lying again. I told you this is not the right place to lie in the Bible. I'm going to call you out every time. Isaiah 14 is against the king of Babylon, And against the king of Babylon, he's doing the same thing that Ezekiel 28 did. He's using mythology that the king of Babylon, also the king of Assyria at the time period, would have known about. Namely, he's tapping into the mythology of King Athtar, who tried to ascend to the mountain of God, which is Mount Zaphon, and ascend to the throne of Baal. But he was a laughingstock because he was too small to even reach the footstool of Baal, and they cast him down. And you'll never guess who he's associated with. He's associated with the planet Venus, the bright morning star, which is why in the actual text, it opens up with Hillel ben Shakar, the shining one, son of the morning. This is a title for Athtar. That has nothing to do with Satan in the Bible.
Okay. So listen.
I'm so impressed by Jason's
I don't know why
knowledge on the
you.
Bible, bro.
I don't know why you keep. I don't know why you keep saying that. It's
Because it's true. In fact, you can just pick up an actual study Bible done by real academics that would tell you this. In fact, in my new Oxford annotated Bible, it literally says, drawn on the Canaanite myth of the gods Hillel and Shachar, morning star and dawn. Now, as it turns out, I'm familiar with the Canaanite mythology, which is why I know that this is coming from that mythology and why all other Old Testament scholars know about this. This is not hidden in the realm of scholarship. This is only the opinion you hold of people who are unfamiliar with the scholarship, unfamiliar with the biblical timeline, unfamiliar with the context of the Bible, unfamiliar with the backdrop of the people that are being written to in the Bible. You're reading into it what you want to be into it, not what the author of the text is actually saying.
yeah, no. Listen, look. Any Ezekiel, right? When it's talking about
I love it
fire,
when somebody with absolutely no credentials wants to come up here and tell me that the guy with the PhD who wrote this study note is actually wrong, but you with actually no credentials, no education, you nailed it. You got it right. I'll let him know. I'll send him an email. Let him know that you figured it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Listen, just because you have a PhD in something doesn't mean that you're just the
He's referring to someone else.
I don't have a PhD. I've got a master's degree.
Okay, all right.
Simon, maybe you should listen to what Justin is actually saying. You keep saying, listen, listen, listen. Maybe you should take your own advice.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question, because you're going to get cooked on Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28 every time. All you're going to do is spin your wheels. You'll never convince anyone on here that somehow you know what this verse is talking about when you clearly don't know what it's talking about. But you brought up this idea that God was good, and I pretty much know that he's not good unless you think that, I don't know, that like it's okay to own slaves. It's okay to stone women that don't bleed on their wedding night. It's okay. Like, if you rape someone, all you got to do is pay a bride price and they can become your wife forever. Like, if your husband dies, you don't have your own autonomy. You have to marry your husband's brother. Do you think that all of these things are good?
All right. So, yeah, that's interesting. All right. So when we say good, what does that mean? What do you mean good?
I use the definition in the dictionary of good. If you have an alternative definition of good, then I'd love to hear you write a new dictionary entry.
Actually, Justin, I think I'm going to agree with Simon here, okay? Their God is loving and their God is good. It's just that when people like Simon, when they mean loving and good, they mean completely different things. Their God is loving. Their God is a good God. But when us average people, when we're using the language English and we say good and loving, we think of something else. I think maybe monster or evil or disgusting or like, I don't know, psychotic, self-centered, narcissistic. These are the things that we usually, these are the words that we common people use to describe what they are calling good and loving. So we're just working with different definitions here.
Yeah, well, maybe he'll be able to tell us if it's good then. Using your definition of good, is it good to own slaves?
Okay, so again, I asked that question because not to be a smart aleck, because we see that Jesus says that only one is good, right? Only God is good. So obviously,
right? Yeah.
Definition is different.
Listen, using your definition of good is what I'm asking for. It's a yes or no question. Using your definition of good, is it good or bad that God allowed owning of slaves?
was it good or bad that God allowed the owning of slaves?
Yeah.
I'm asking, is that what you said?
Question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
I'd have a failing connection right about now too.
Sorry, you're so...
I said it's good.
So it is good.
Okay, so yeah, it is good.
I said it's good. Yeah. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
so owning slaves is good. So what? So you didn't have a problem with the African American slave trade then, did you?
Okay. Listen, it's very simple. Number one, the African American slave trade is totally different than the slavery that we see in the Old Testament. Right?
Name the
So
difference.
We have good forms of
Moreover,
slavery.
right?
We have good forms of slavery then.
It's
okay.
always that good slavery. I know. It's a good slavery. What's the difference? I bet you can't
It
name
wasn't
one.
the bad kind. It was the good kind.
And you see, it's almost like this, right? God never says that. And number one, right, that question that you asked me, you said, was it good that God allowed for slavery, right? I said, yes, it was good that he allowed for it, right? I did not say that slavery was good, right? So those are two different questions, right? So
Okay,
me saying
is slavery
that it was
good?
that he allowed for it. Come on. Look, can I just speak for a second? Me saying that it was good that he allowed for it is me.
It's
totally
crazy that he
different
thinks
from me
it's
saying
his
that
show.
Slavery is good. No.
So do you think that slavery is good or bad?
Okay, there we go. No, slavery is bad.
Okay, then
The
why
next
was it
question
good
you're
when
gonna
God
ask me
allowed it?
is, why did God allow for slavery?
I already know the answer to this too. Just give me the bad apologetics so I can cook you on that.
There we go. Okay, right.
After this, let's go to
Why
the
did
next
God
scholar
allow for
because we
slavery?
have some good ones.
Why did God allow for slavery? It's very simple, right? The same that he allows for us to have be evil today because we have free will. Listen, he allows.
So why did
gives us
he make any laws if he wanted us to decide for ourselves? He gave 600 plus laws, and for some reason, like you can't eat shellfish, you can't have pork. Like he's very concerned, like if you put your tallywhacker in another dude, but he totally okay if like you're gonna own slaves. So he clearly didn't want you to exercise complete authority over your decisions. He chose to limit many of those decisions. What he didn't do was limit slavery. In fact, he did the opposite. He commanded them to take slaves.
And he gave instructions
so
on how
listen,
to
all right, so-
beat your slaves.
So let me
right?
so look. Let me break it down real quick, right? And I think you know this also, right? God does not. He didn't just not put any regulations on the slaves, right? We can see that in Leviticus, right? We see that he puts regulations on certain aspects regarding the slavery.
What did he regulate?
If you
right?
beat them, make sure they don't die. I think that's one of them.
Exodus 21, 20 through 21 says you just can't murder your Hebrew slave. This is clarified in Deuteronomy.
Right. So the God when he was giving instructions, he didn't bother saying don't beat your slaves. He was saying that if your slaves are Hebrew, make sure they don't die when you're beating them. He could have so easily just said like just don't beat them, but he was like, no, that's too much of an ask.
It's actually worse than that because if you read it carefully in verse 21, we'll read it. It says when a slave owner strikes a male or female slave with a rod and the slave dies immediately, the owner shall be punished. But if the slave survives for a day or two, there's no punishment because the slave is the owner's master. So in both verses, the slave is dead. The only question is whether or not it was on purpose. If it's accidental, then it's presumed to be an accident. And since the slave is the owner's money, there's no punishment.
Yeah, we don't want anything to do with this version of love, Simon. We don't like it. You could keep your love to yourself. We go with our version of love.
I've had enough of that love for sure.
Yeah.
And again, y'all can keep on saying that, but listen, if you do not fully understand the gospel and what the gospel means, the gospel is not
talking about owning human beings as property.
Listen,
does the gospel ever say don't own slaves? I'm not going to let you dodge. Does the gospel ever say to free your slaves?
I don't think so. No, it doesn't.
Not once. Okay. So the God of the Bible says you can own slaves, says you can beat slaves, commands you to make women your concubines and also sex slaves. Not one verse of the Bible says we are no longer doing slavery. Slavery is wrong. Don't do it anymore. Not a single one. God had every opportunity to say we're not doing slavery anymore, and he failed, which can only mean that the God that is in this book does not care about slaves. Not for 1 minute. He only cares if his people are being made slaves, because when he freed his people from slavery, he says he's doing it because they are his servants. They're his slaves. These are my property. God doesn't care about slavery. He cares about his slaves being taken from him. When he freed the Israelites from Egypt, he didn't free anyone else. He didn't free slaves in Mesopotamia. He didn't free slaves in China. He freed a select group of people from bondage in Egypt so that they can be his slaves. That's it.
Oh, so this was a property dispute between God and the Egyptian, between the Pharaoh. Like, this is my shit that you stole.
Right. He says it outright in Leviticus 25. In fact, he says that for they are my servants or slaves who I brought out of the land of Egypt. So they're his slaves. This is a narcissist God. He's not concerned about anyone's freedom. But listen, Simeon,
like he wasn't even concerned about the Jews. It was only concerned about him being served properly. Like, what the fuck? Where the fuck are my servants? They're busy building pyramids. They should be building my temple. So this wasn't even for the sake of the Jewish people. They're like, why are you doing some other person's work?
To be fair, though, I mean, have you smelled barbecue? It's delicious. So,
oh yeah, that makes sense.
It's good stuff.
Like, God wants his meat.
I don't know if like making a nation of slaves is worth the baby back ribs, but they fall off the bone. They're great. But Simeon, thank you so much for joining. Listen, we've been on the line for 35 minutes. We've got more callers waiting to get in. Our backlog is starting to back up on us. So we appreciate you coming through and sharing your excellence in biblical scholarship, and call back anytime.
I've been calling him Simon all this. Simeon. Sorry for mispronouncing your name all the entire time. Yeah. By the way, Simeon, if you had said listen, you would probably been able to double the things you were able to communicate during your call. So there's that. Okay.
All right. So I think he lost connection anyways. I think the Lord took him. So we'll get Simon dropped, and we'll bring in our next caller. Actually, we've got some super chats we need to read first. Sorry, we've probably got backed up on super chats. It's been so while. I think our first super chat, as far as I'm aware, you can correct me if I'm wrong, guys, is coming from Nero, who's been a member now for 1 year. And it says, Hebrews asked for meat, God gave snakes, bad dad. Which actually is in the book of Numbers, by the way. that happens in the book of Numbers, where they ask for bread and God sends snakes on them. It's wild. Shit. I know. It actually happened. We've got another super chat.
Sounds like a prank or something. I don't know.
The book of Numbers is wild. God kills a man for picking up sticks on the Sabbath, and they didn't even know if that was a violation of the Sabbath yet. They had to go and ask God, like, hey, did he actually break the Sabbath? And God's like, take him out, stone him. Like, wow, what a merciful God.
My favorite part is when God says that when two men are fighting, if the wife of one of them comes to defend the other one and grabs the other man by the balls, then you have to cut off her hand. And then he's that's not done. And he specifically also makes sure to ask you not to show her any pity. So cut off your hand's wife if she in defending you, she comes and grabs another man's balls. I mean, Justin, I always wanted to ask somebody who is more has expertise in biblical scholarship. Did this happen so many times back then, so that they had to come up with a rule for it? Like, were women just going around grabbing other men's balls in defense of their husband? That somebody said, like, listen, we need to stop this shit. We need to stop. We need to end this ball grabbing, this tragic situation that we're dealing with here. Like, what was happening?
So it's actually interesting that you mentioned that, because we find similar laws in the ancient Near Eastern law codes where, like, if a woman damages somebody's reproductive organs, that she's going to be held accountable. And often it's going to be the chopping off of the hands. And there are some other punishments too, but a lot of them are more for slaves. Like people that were slaves back then were more likely to have a physical punishment, whereas if you're a higher status, you're more likely to have like a payment as a punishment, because that's what's just like America today. Like the more money you have, the more likely it is that your punishment is not going to be jail time. They're going to fine you for all your worth and try to collect that money.
It seemed like overall the Bible is very concerned about protecting balls. Like there are multiple verses regarding the physical integrity of the ball and making sure that it's all in one place, and also not allowing men in heaven if there's any damage to the balls. Like it's a very ball obsessed God, right?
He's really into it. Deuteronomy 23 says, no one whose testicles have been crushed or whose penis has been cut off shall come into the assembly of the Lord, which is brutal, considering like the very first command of following this God is that you got to cut off part of your penis. What if they slip? I mean, this is crazy to me.
Right. So cut this part, but if there's any damage to this other part, you're fucked forever. You're going to burn forever.
That's right.
So if you,
it's just a tip or your barbecue.
Yes. I don't know what's up with this religion. I don't know how this religion became so popular.
Well, when you spread something by the sword, you don't really have a choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We've got some super chats. Let's get through a couple of them. Isaiah S., thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Says, if God is real, let him change this super chat to a prayer. Guess the supposed creator of the universe doesn't have that power. Not at all. In fact,
you're not supposed to test God in the Bible, according to the Bible. You just test God.
Unless you want to convince people to become Christians, because then they'll quote to you like Mark chapter 16 and the book of John, where Jesus says, pray anything in my name and it'll be given to you. But you don't want to push your luck. When they've already committed, then you tell them don't test God.
Okay. Wow, so confusing.
Perry Levache, thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Says, longtime listener, first time watcher. Nobody told me Armin was a baddie. Sheesh, Armin is a baddie.
Wow. Okay, thank you guys. That's sweet.
And Miranda's been a member now for 1 year.
Is this a bad time to promote my channel? Hey, guys, if you want to see more of me, come to Atheist Republic YouTube channel. I have more shows there.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been subscribed for a while to your channel.
Oh, that's sweet. By the way, Justin, you have your own channel, right?
Yeah, Deconstruction Zone.
What's your channel? Yeah, for people who don't know, Deconstruction Zone, go check it out. Make sure you subscribe to their channel. I mean, yeah. So I'm subscribed to that one as well. It's a really good channel. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I know we're behind on super chats. Yeah.
Well, they're important. They keep the channel going. Miranda Rensberger, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says, I didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collection. Amazing quote from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You don't just become king by some watery tart throwing swords at you. And Texas Pan. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask for a name change of this channel. Since we're a monarchy right now, I want that to be represented in our name. And also I would like a crown in our new logo. And also Justin is the king, right? We all agreed upon that.
Only if I can have like a badass scepter with a crystal ball at the top of it.
Yeah, and a throne.
Oh, for sure, a throne, obviously.
I'm sure with all the super chat we have the budget. Guys, more super chat. Thrones are expensive. So let's make it happen.
Well, Texas Panhandler coming in with a 666. Hail Nero says, Justin is working 24/7 nowadays. He is definitely a king. I bow to you, sir. Well, thank you so much, Panhandler. It's good to see you again tonight. And Master Sheeter is with us. Good to see you, Master Sheeter. Master Sheeter says, Justin, you are a king. Well, I appreciate that, Master Sheeter. It's good to see you as well tonight, my friend. Oh, Discordia has a super chat coming in and says, too funny. This kid thinks he can educate Justin on the Bible. They try. They really do try.
It was so adorable watching him try.
Could you imagine going to your doctor's office and be like, listen, I know you're a doctor, but I'm going to need you to follow my advice.
Listen. No, so yeah, and also say, listen. That part, you don't have to miss that part. Like, it was so amazing how confident this person was. Yeah, but
yeah, to have the confidence of like a 19, 18, 20-year-old that has been raised in the Christian faith and, have a thorough, propagandizing growing up. But Jimmy, thank you for the super chat. Jimmy says, sin, the name of the Sumerian Babylonian moon god. And you're 100% right. And sin makes a showing in the Hebrew Bible. If you're reading it in the original text, you'll find sin there. You'll find Shamash, the sun god, although in Hebrew it's Shemesh. You'll find a bunch of Canaanite gods that show up in there. The word for death in Hebrew is Moth, which is a Canaanite deity of death. Baal is imported from Canaanite mythology as well. Listen, everything we know about the people of the Old Testament is that they're likely just Canaanites, and then they developed their own mythology to separate from that. But yeah, big W on knowing that sin is the name of the Sumerian Babylonian moon god. Pierre Lavacci again with a super chat says, first time seeing Justin here. He's killing it. Well, thank you so much, Perry. And I'm going to attempt not to do a Yahwistic genocide, but I appreciate the kind words. And Evan, good to see you in the house tonight. Evan with the super chat says, thank you both for what you do. Armin, your book helped my deconstruction by presenting the logic of common apologetic arguments. You two rock. I agree. Armin's dynamite.
Oh, wow.
And
thank you, guys. My ego. You have to be careful. My ego, I think, is getting boosted too much today. Okay. But yeah, let's reduce it a little bit.
But these are well earned, by the way. Anyone who's been watching for any amount of time knows it. Blind Limey,
thank you.
A member for 2 years now. Big W for Blind Limey. It says the Bible is a load of bollocks. Got it. Yeah, you nailed it. Absolutely. Yeah. And Nero again, who's been a member for over a year with the super chat, says wiener inspection before entering the temple. Could you imagine if we had to actually enact the laws of the Old Testament? How awkward that would be.
Yeah. You're right. Actually, that's maybe that was the point. Maybe whoever wrote that wanted that job.
Right. Men would have to go back to wearing dresses again, and then they wouldn't let you in the temple anyways because you're wearing a dress.
Yeah. Actually, that verse is now making a lot more sense to me. But yeah, go on.
And BG Stargazer, thank you for the $5 super thanks. Really appreciate that. Thank you for supporting the channel. And with that, I think we've got more theists on the line ready to talk. So let's bring one in, eh?
Okay.
All right. We tried to get Reuben earlier, and we were having trouble connecting, but I think this time we'll be able to get Reuben on the line.
I'm looking forward to Joseph as well.
Yeah, I was going to get Joseph in here next.
I hope you got me on this time.
Well, I mean, we had a little bit of technical issues with the audio, but I think it's fixed now. Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys just fine.
Awesome.
Hey, can you hear us? Oh, yeah. Oh, he said he does? Okay, never mind. Go on.
I think it's just a little delayed. Yeah. So it says here that your suggestion is that science in the age of the earth is somehow proof of God?
No. At best, what we could do is, if, just hypothetically, if we could scientifically prove the earth is young, that would strongly indicate a supernatural origin of some kind. So the best we could hope for with science is to get to some kind of theism as a pointing direction. But just with science itself, it certainly couldn't get to God in such a way. Based on the science we understand from the Big Bang, it requires that the universe is really old because a lot of things take an awful lot of time to go in a natural way. But hypothetically, if there was some kind of supreme supernatural being, you guys have probably heard the 5-minute universe concept, which is if there is a supreme supernatural being with truly unlimited power, theoretically, that being could have created the entire universe 5 minutes ago and planted false memories in our mind. And we would have no way to disprove that from that perspective.
So are you...
What is a supernatural being? Can you explain that to us first? Like, we're trying to talk about if you're saying if the world was this many years old instead of that, then the only explanation would be a powerful supernatural being responsible for it. Is that what you're suggesting? Am I understanding you properly?
I'm saying that the most logical explanation would be some being which would have to exist outside of the universe. Basically, if we could prove naturalistic religions are impossible.
Outside of the universe, meaning outside of like this universe or all the universes, outside of space and time? What do you mean by outside of universe?
What we understand. Outside
so
of what
something that is, can you explain to me how could something be outside of space and time? Like, can you explain that? Because something that is outside of space and time means that it exists nowhere in space and exists in no time. That is the very definition of not existing, right? If something exists at no time and no place, that is the very definition of not existing.
I mean, do we all agree that the statement "true things are true" is a true statement, and that statement would be true even if none of us were around? Can we all agree that concept?
Even if one of us was what?
1 + 1 = 2. Can we all agree that 1 + 1 = 2? That would be true even a million years ago or whatever, before there were any humans capable of arithmetic. Can we agree that the statement or the concept of 1 + 1 = 2 would have still been true without?
Can you answer my question first before, like, you're basically claiming stating the obvious? Okay, you're talking about the existence of something outside of space and time, and I don't even understand what that means. Okay, my understanding of something existing is for it to actually exist within space and time. When somebody talks to me about supernatural, I have to first understand what the hell they're talking about, right? And every time they explain what they mean by supernatural, it either goes in the direction of it's being natural things that we haven't discovered, or they're describing something that is the very definition of not existing altogether, right? So I'm trying to figure out which one of these two supernaturals you're talking about. And it seems it's the second one. You're saying something that doesn't exist in any time and doesn't exist in any space. That is the very definition of not existing. If you mean something else, can you explain to me what do you mean by supernatural?
Any time or any space that we can understand in a direct sense.
Okay, so it exists in a different. So you're saying okay. So it exists in a different space and time. That's what you're saying. So not this space-time. The universe that we live in is a space-time, okay? So not this space-time, you're saying in a different space-time. If what you're talking about does exist in a different space-time, that would make it natural. It doesn't make it supernatural, it makes it natural. This is why the very idea of supernatural doesn't make any sense. It either exists within a space and time or it doesn't exist altogether.
Perceive in and of our own senses. Outside of anything we could possibly perceive in and of our own senses. So outside of what we think of,
that doesn't make it supernatural. As long as it exists within space and time, even if our senses cannot detect it, it still makes it natural. It just makes part of nature that we do not have access to.
That something cannot exist outside of our concept of space and time. Why would you make that?
Have we ever observed anything to exist outside of space-time?
That doesn't even make sense.
Not to my knowledge.
Right. So you're
not
positing something
saying it has
that,
to
as
make
far as we
sense, but
know, isn't actually possible. Right. So you're saying that God exists outside of space and time, yet we've never observed anything existing outside of space and time. We would need evidence first that such a thing could actually happen. But I don't think that there's evidence of it. And I don't even think it's logically coherent, because if you exist outside of space time, meaning you don't exist within time, you can't do anything. Time is a thing that segregates any two moments, right? So you can't do anything. You can't think, you can't speak, you can't create anything, because you need time to already exist for any creative action to take place, for any verb to work. You need time to already exist. So there's no such thing as outside of time, unless you think that everything outside of time never actually happened, or it's always been happening all at once.
Well, so that's based on your own senses, and that's a normal thing. My perspective is simply, just because we haven't observed it, that doesn't mean it's impossible. So I'm not going to rule out the possibility. And so instead, I'm going to look at the evidence that we have that I can see, and see what's the best explanation if I make the fewest assumptions. That's Occam's razor, right? So if I make the fewest assumptions possible about what is or isn't possible, and I look at the evidence that I have in the universe that we can see, what's the best explanation? The best explanation I can find based on the scientific evidence I can observe is that there must be a being which exists outside of what we perceive as
right. We're asking for the evidence of that, right? Just saying that it exists doesn't make it exist. What's the evidence that is the case?
Have you heard of the Borges-Blanken theorem?
I didn't even hear the words that came out of your mouth. Can you say it again?
Sorry, it's the Borges-Blanken theorem, or the BGB theorem.
Nope.
It's talked about. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, we haven't heard of it.
The short version is there's a little bit of debate about it, but there was a paper that they put together that essentially, if I understand correctly, and I'm not a scientist, I just love science.
Who is they?
But if I understand it correctly, the three guys who wrote the paper.
Who are they?
If I understand what they're scientists, I believe they're all physicists. I'm not sure. I don't recall. But you can look up the paper. I highly recommend.
Do you believe?
Or at least look up.
Do you believe what scientists teach?
Sometimes.
Okay, so you just pick and choose the stuff that you teach. Okay, cool. So, if you're just gonna quote mine, what I'm saying is that if you're going to quote mine scientists that support your opinion, we're going to quote mine scientists that support ours. So I'm not sure this is the argument you think it's going to be.
Well, I'm not looking for an argument. I'm really hoping to share information. I don't want to have an argument. I've spent way too much time having stupid arguments that didn't benefit me or anyone else. I like to have discussions and share information. And even if at the end of this,
I'm not suggesting that it's an argument. I'm saying an argument is a form of dialogue. I'm not saying that you and I are arguing. I'm just saying an argument is when you provide a claim and then provide rationale for the claim. I'm not suggesting that you and I should be fighting in this conversation.
Okay, I get what you're saying. I agree with that. An argument in the general term of making an argument to support a claim. I'm with you now.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
The misunderstanding. So if you guys haven't even heard of the BGB theorem or don't know anything about it, before you write it off, I'd recommend you look it up, because to my understanding, those three guys are all ranging from agnostic to atheist. None of them are theists. But what the paper essentially proves, and again, there's a little bit of debate about it, but the vast majority of physicists who have read the paper, again, to my understanding, please look it up for yourselves, don't just take my word for it. The paper seems to prove that
this is just a theorem that said. Wait. The short version is that this is just a theorem that states that any universe that has been expanding must have had a beginning. It cannot be eternal in the past. It applies to classical space-time, but doesn't account for quantum gravity. Okay. So yeah, what does this got to do with any of the things that you were talking about?
Well, Hubble also proves that our universe has been expanding. So if we take those two facts, that our universe has been expanding, and any universe which on average is expanding has to have had some kind of beginning, then our universe logically must have had some kind of beginning. Now, it does say that it doesn't take into account quantum gravity. However, we still don't have any kind of functional work quantum gravity.
Yeah, you froze on us
Sorry,
there,
Matt,
Armin.
that's a little bit there. Oh, it seems
Yeah,
like
I
a
know I'm
two-way
back.
thing.
Like, can you guys hear me? But this is, you sound like this theorem is not like there's no disagreements over it. Like we have multiple theories. Some people agree with it. Some people say the universe, there are options here.
I
Like
don't
this
know if
is
you
not
guys
like
can still
a
hear me, but I'm
revelation
only
from
getting
God.
about every other syllable or so from you guys.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it could
correct.
be, but so I mean, there's a couple problems with what you're referring to. So essentially what you're saying is because the universe is expanding that it must have had a beginning, but that's not actually what science teaches. Like if I threw a rock into a pond and you saw ripples, well, the ripples are always going to expand. That's what ripples do. But that doesn't mean that before the rock was thrown into the water, that neither the rock nor the water existed, right? So the universe is indeed expanding, but the fact that it started in a much smaller state and was in some form that we don't know about prior to that doesn't mean that it simply didn't exist prior to that. That makes sense?
Well, what the theorem indicates is that the components of our universe, which is space-time, matter, and energy, those three components had to come into existence, or rather that they could not have pre-existed whatever that origin point was. So it's not
And why can't they?
existed in a smaller form. You'd have to ask those guys. That part is beyond my my understanding of science.
Okay.
Because there are other sorry, go ahead,
There are
Ben.
so many disagreements. No, I was just going to say basically the same thing. This is what I was saying when I was being my voice was roboty. I was just saying like this is not like a revelation from God that everyone in the scientific community completely agrees on. There's a lot of challenges to this. Other people believe in other theories. Some people think that maybe there are other theories that the universe is expanding and then coming back together again and then expanding again. There are some theories that the beginning of a universe was like, I don't know, the Big Bang from another universe that ended up starting this universe. Like we have the multiverse theory. Like this is not like set in stone that the scientific community has just introduced this and everybody is like, yeah, okay, this is it. We all completely agree with this and then close the chapter and just moved on. This is just one of the theories out there.
Right, but it's also true, and Armin kind of
But it is
mentioned
it's a very strong theory that's very well supported. And while there is
not.
some debate and some argument about it, there's also a lot of good scientists who have examined the paper and who have not found significant issue with it. And so it's
wrong, Greg. Like so what I'm reading right now, and this was easy to find, it says the BGV theorem applies to classical spacetime, but some physicists argue that quantum effects could allow for a past eternal universe. And then we also have alternative cosmological models. And this was like really easy to find. Some propose cyclic universes, emergent spacetime, or bouncing models, which may avoid a strict beginning. And also there's a new proof of a singular origin. The theorem states that inflationary universes must have a beginning, but it does not prove the Big Bang singularity or a specific creation event. So yeah, all of this is disputed. This is not like, I think a lot of religious people think like scientists treat their scientific papers like the end all and be all revelation that everybody just agree. Like the way they treat science is like how religious people treat their revelation. This is a completely different the methodology here is like everyone is working on everyone else's work and no word is final.
I think a lot of scientists treat scientific works the same way a lot of religious people treat religious works. which is that sometimes
completely the opposite. Completely the opposite. You have no idea. Then you have no idea how this world works. In fact, the whole point of scientific research is to prove other research wrong. The way that the scientific communities grow is by challenging what came before it. So religious people treat their text as something that cannot be corrected, but every scientist, what they're actually trying to do is to correct the text that came before them. It's a completely opposite attitude that the scientific community has. In fact, scientists are rewarded mostly by trying to prove, by being successful at proving other scientists wrong.
I understand why you believe that, but when I
read I believe that because I know, because that's the case. This is how science works. Model. This is how science. That's the scientific model. This is why religion stays behind and science constantly grows, because they're not satisfied with the results that they got before. This is why religion is still stuck back in the 2,000 years ago, or 1,400 years ago, or 5,000 years ago. Pick your religion, but science keeps evolving every single day. It seems like every second now.
Can I recommend a name for you guys and the viewers to look up on YouTube? Scientists, actually, a couple of them.
Only if you, is that all right? Only if you read our recommendations.
I can commit to doing my best. I can't commit to actually necessarily following through as Dr. Busy Life.
Okay. Well, we're going to give you the same level of commitment that you give us.
That's good. That's a great answer.
Totally fair. That's totally fair. I want to throw a name out for Inquisitive Minds. And I think it'd be great if you guys throw names out for Inquisitive Minds as well. And the amount of inquisition my mind has, varies from day to day, like it does for all of us. Sometimes we have days, I'm just tired. I just want to play some games and go to bed. I don't want to go and listen to a 2-hour lecture. So I will commit to not writing off whatever you guys say. But so the two names that I would like to recommend people look up just to find information. One of them is Spike Sarris, P-S-A-R-R-I-S. It's his last name. He's a physicist or astronomer. I think he has a bachelor's in astronomy. He used to work with the military space program as an independent contractor. He's got a great
bachelor's.
Another one is Rick Oliver.
You want me to read That's what I want. I want to read a guy with a PhD. I don't care if you got an undergraduate degree.
Well, the question is, does truth matter whether you have a degree or not?
Well, when it comes to a scientific field, yeah. When it comes to the scientific field, we want to hear from actual experts. Like anyone can get a bachelor's degree. Any Joe Schmo off the street can go to a university and get a bachelor's degree in something. It's not very hard. All you need is enough money or loans to get through the process. You don't even have to graduate with a good GPA. But to finish your actual PhD, you have to be a dedicated scholar and be an expert in the field. I want to read cosmology from actual experts in the field.
Okay, how about Jason Lyle and Russell Humphreys? They both have PhDs in physics. I think Jason Lyle is astrophysics specifically, and Russ Humphreys is, I believe, is general physics. Or
I don't think this is getting, I think even if these are valuable, this is not going to get us anywhere closer to a supernatural, powerful being.
Not even
or
close.
God. Not even close. I don't know if this is what's the point of all of this?
We'll end with this rebuttal. Go read anything written by Sean Carroll or William Kinney. Those would be good resources for something closer to our opinion on the universe. But listen, Reuben, I appreciate you coming up and talking with us. You waited in the queue for quite a while, so your patience is commended. And
I'm gonna tell Reuben to go read my book too. Why There Is No God. It's actually a quick read. You can see it's very small. You could go, and it's a bestseller on Amazon as well, so you could go check that out. Okay, so this will actually get you to the answer more directly because it's actually about God.
Sean Carroll, is that just SeanCarol?
Yeah, Sean Carroll. I know.
And what was
they get stuck in a loop.
Was it, did you say William McKinney or?
It's William Kinney, Kinney. He's a professor at Buffalo University.
Okay, I'll look them up. I've listened to guys like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. I know Hitchens is a scientist, but I've listened to both of them quite a bit. I've listened to debates between those. Well, actually, I haven't listened to any Richard Dawkins debates, but I've listened to a bunch of Christopher Hitchens debates. And I find him very interesting. Christopher Hitchens is an incredible speaker. Oh my gosh, it's hard to beat him just when it comes to speaking. He just sounds great, and he's really well spoken.
Can we get to the next caller?
Sure.
Yeah, I just disagree with him on a lot of things, obviously. So.
All right. Well, Reuben, thanks for coming up.
We got
to move forward. Thank you for coming through. All right. And with that, before we get to our next call, we're going to get Joseph in here next from Utah. But before that, we got some announcements. So we have some exciting news from Sophia, if the clip is ready to play.
Calling all free thinkers. We are excited to announce that the ACA is launching its first ever fundraising campaign, Amplify ACA, in partnership with Amplify Austin. This is your chance to expand our impact by making your voices heard and supporting the shows that you love.
We invite you to join us on March 5th starting at 6 p.m. We're going to be doing a 24-hour fundraising event and camp out live at the Free Thought Library in Austin, Texas. We've got a great show in the works, a whole variety hour with our hosts doing different things, not just taking calls like you're used to, but we're going to have the fun facts and playing some games and lots of different activities. So be sure to join us from that. Again, it's going to be really exciting, and we're looking forward to having as many people involved as we possibly can.
Donating is easy on amplifyatx.org. Just search the word atheist and click the donate button. Follow us on our socials for more information.
And this is important. We want to be able to amplify the voices of reason and compassion worldwide. So we ask you, please, donate on Amplify Austin Day to make a real difference.
Thank you, Ben, Sophia, and Jamie. Yes, this is our first ever major fundraising campaign, and we need your help to make it a success. Mark your calendars, write it down, put it in your phones. March 5th at 6 p.m. That's March 5th at 6 p.m. for our fundraising kickoff party and 24-hour live stream. The hosts that you love will be part of the live stream as well. Some of us will. I know I've already committed to being part of the live stream. Come on down to the Free Thought Library in Austin if you're there, or join us online via the Atheist Experience channel. Make a plan to donate, and let's amplify the ACA together. And I don't know about you, Armin, but for me, the ACA has a very large spot in my heart. It really helped me through some of my deconversion process and trying to put my thoughts, into an order that was sensible and rational. Oh no, we lost your audio, Armin.
Oh, I was just saying, yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people know that in Middle East, a lot of people, this was their only, one of their main outlets to watch people, because I and many other atheists in Iran watched this when we were kids, and we were shocked by this. Was the main outlet that we know that people are coming and so openly talking about the existence of God as if it's normal to talk about these topics, just openly. It was such a, back then, this was such a taboo for us, and we were watching this. And I know a lot of people in Middle Eastern countries used to watch this and were so inspired by it. Many atheists there who felt alone or felt very isolated. I know a lot of Americans might have watched this, not knowing that this is also being watched in other countries. And so this is why this is me being a host here. This is so unbelievable to me, because I remember watching this as a kid and the impact this had on us. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people are already having these thoughts, and they just need somebody to be saying it out loud for them to feel okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not alone here. I think that other people are saying the same thing. And so I think, we're going to say it as loud as we can to as many people as we can. A couple more announcements. Yeah. We welcome you to join the weekly watch parties at the Free Thought Library on Sundays for live viewings of Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience every Sunday. Doors open at noon. It's a great place for building community. And if you're in the Austin area, follow us on Meetup and keep up with the community events. You can see what's going on at tiny.cc/camp ACA meetup. I'll say it again. It's tiny.cc/ACA meetup. There'll be philosophy under the stars, game nights, and more. Now, for another appointment, mark your calendars for March 23rd. There'll be a live in-studio Talk Heathen and Atheist Experience. Talk Heathen will be hosted by Sophia Spina with Jamie and Blind Limey, and the Atheist Experience will be hosting Secular Rarity with Sidney Davis Jr. Be sure to stop in and say hello. The doors open at noon. And as always, want to send a big thank you to the crew who puts the show together every week: video operators, audio operators, note takers, call screeners, and chat moderators. Big thank you to the crew that make all this happen. And last but not least, guys, we are still taking super chats. I'm going to read off a couple of them now. We've got another one in from Lenny. Thank you so much, Lenny. Says, Armin, if you were cast in a DC superhero movie, who would you play? Also, totally not because of your hairstyle.
Oh, I guess I have to say Superman, right? Right.
I think so.
Yeah. But I think given I like Batman because he manages to do all the things he does without any superpower. I mean, he is very rich, so that helps, right? But I kind of like the idea of being able to pull off what other superheroes actually have to can only achieve with superpowers, but he does it with just without any of that. So yeah,
I definitely agree with that. Batman's got a really fun arsenal of tools, and he actually has to come up with gadgets, and who doesn't love a good gadget, Yeah. When you're Superman, you just fly and zap people with your eyeballs and make sure to avoid kryptonite.
Yeah.
Doodly Doop, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, I agree. Armin is looking good. Great talks too. Guys, Armin's on fire tonight. Did you know you were going to be the atheist community heartthrob?
No, I didn't know. I mean, Justin looks very good too. So let's be honest. He's like very good.
Armin is now the AXB international sex symbol, guys. So we've got a new mascot. Alex B, thank you for the super chat, says, Justin, only a puppet for the true king. Long live Doug. You're right. Doug is the true king, and Doug and Sharon Stone are watching over us. They're behind us on the shelf as we speak. And Nero again with the super chat, big thanks, says, homework for Reuben. B theory time and Hawking's no boundary proposal. You really need to expand your study buddy, and absolutely big W on that. Yeah. And to people calling in, recall, if you are going to go out and quote mine a particular physicist, anyone can play that game. We can go out and quote mine other physicists that agree with us. That's not a solid argument like you think it is. It only works when you're in a coffee shop and nobody is already on the internet that can go out and find the quotes that contradict your quotes. But Jonathan, thank you so much for the $1.99 super chat. Jonathan Franz, didn't say anything. Jonathan Franz sent $1.99 to say, and then he's acting coy and mysterious. Jonathan is a fan of mystery.
He works in mysterious ways.
That's right. The algorithm has summoned me. Good to see you, my good friend algorithm. Says, anyone else think Reuben actually got that degree from Kent Hovind? Thanks to the $20, here's your diploma. If I could, I'd like it in your, if I could, I'd like to do your intro one day. Listen, algorithm is a great friend of mine. He does amazing intros. If you don't already know his work on TikTok. But yeah, Kent Hovind, if you don't know, got his supposed PhD from Patriot Bible College, which is a trailer in the middle of the desert, and somehow was able to do it without actually completing a master's degree. And you can find his dissertation online for free on PDF form. And I can promise you, it's the best comedy you're going to read in a long time. Aaron Leitz, my good friend, good to see you in here on the XP stream. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. Says, I've been watching AXP since 2004. I was an apologist then and happily no longer. Thank you, team, for all you do. Well, thank you. Aaron Leitz. Good to hear from you tonight, by the way. Tally back in the house. Thank you so much for the 1999 super chat. It says, great to see you two together. And I agree. I think this is a dynamic duo right now. And Lenny, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, Justin, Armin seems to think there's no God. Have you introduced him to Doug and Sharon Stone? Well, see, actually, I haven't done that yet, but Doug and Sharon are actually right here with us.
Are these gods? Because I'm actually very offended because there's no gods recognized on the ACA more other than the farting turtle, my giant farting turtle. So I see this as a challenge. I see. Are these supposed to be gods? Because my God is a jealous God, and I'm going to speak on behalf of it.
Well, as it turns out, these gods play well with other fake gods. Their only rule is that they don't allow religious, dangerous fake gods to exist, like the ones we read in the holy books. And then 2 more super chats. We'll get our next caller in here. Pierre, thank you so much for the super chat again. Says Armin for ACA calendar February. Are you ready to do a spread on the ACA calendar?
Okay, guys. Oh, guys, I don't know what's happening. Thank you, guys. I don't know how to properly react to all of this. I have to think about it.
Don't worry.
But thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
Acme Hero, last one, says Batman is a fascist. I was unaware of this. I don't know if Batman's actually a fascist. That's more Batman lore that I'm up to speed with. But we've got a theist from Pennsylvania ready to come in. This is going to be Lewis. Says the existence of consciousness points to there being a God. Lewis, are you with us?
Hi, can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very good. Thank you for asking. Is the prompt correct? Do you think the existence of our consciousness points to God?
Well, I think it could certainly be seen that way. It's hard to explain how consciousness arises from materialism alone, but it certainly doesn't prove that there's a God. But it could certainly be seen as something that points to it. I think it's a bit ignorant to pretend that there's nothing that could be seen as pointing to God, but I could see how that's getting subjective, but it's also subjective for you to take that and say that it doesn't point to it.
Wait, so what are you trying to show? That consciousness shows that there's something beyond materialism or God?
I'm just saying that consciousness could be seen as something that points to God.
How though?
Mean, whenever you,
okay, what do you mean by God? What do you mean by God?
Into your show, something beyond materialism, something beyond matter.
So does it have to be conscious?
I also think it's interesting. How before you even heard my argument, you sort of, and really I don't like to argue, I like to have discussions, but before you even heard it, you were kind of making fun of it, which fundamentally shows bias towards it not being true.
When did we make fun of it? We're trying to clarify. We're trying to understand what you're saying. We're asking questions to be able to understand what you're talking about. So before you make your argument, I have to know what we're trying to prove.
I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just showing the fundamental bias in the things that
we're having a discussion.
And how,
this is not a bias. Okay, Lewis, it seems like you are very sensitive. I feel like you're overly sensitive.
No, sorry.
Because when we I think you should let your guard down. I think you get really upset really fast. I think it's okay. We're having a discussion. We're just trying to understand what you're saying, right? So we're clarifying. So you don't want to call it a debate. You don't want to act like you're trying to prove anything. Okay, we want to have a discussion about whether consciousness shows that a God exists, okay? Whether it hints at it, even if it doesn't prove it, does maybe points in that direction, okay? For me to be able to understand if what you're saying has any validity or not, okay, as we could have a friendly discussion about it, I just first want to be on the same page as you. Because many times when I talk to people about God, we start having a discussion about God, and then I realize that, they were talking about something completely different that I assumed. So I don't want to make a false assumption, so that we don't get misdirected. So I just want to understand what you mean by God. So when I ask you what you mean by God, you said something that is not material. Anything, so based on your understanding of what God is, anything beyond material, you would categorize it as God, or does it have any other, do you need to specify it more, or is that enough? Anything beyond material?
I think that the issue here is that you're pushing me to come up with a definition for God, but God is inherently something that I can't fully understand. I'm merely saying that consciousness can be seen as something that points to there being God.
So,
okay, let's work with that. Okay.
I guess my question is, like, if you can't tell us what the thing is that consciousness is pointing to, how do we know that consciousness is pointing to a thing?
Right.
I'm not saying that we know, I'm saying that it could be seen that way. Really, I'm trying to highlight the fundamental problems in the show here.
Wait, did you come to provide a rational argument, or did you come to complain about the show? Because we're not interested in meta commentary. We want to have a good faith dialogue with you about your belief system.
I'm pointing out.
We don't even know what you're talking about, and it seems like you are admitting that you also don't know what you're talking about. So how could we even have a conversation about what consciousness points to if we don't even know what you're talking about? And so you're saying consciousness points to X, and you're like, okay, what is X? And you're like, I don't know.
Okay, I'll clarify.
I have no definition for it. So, like, yeah, we can't even begin to have a conversation of what consciousness, if consciousness points to X or not. If you cannot tell us what that X is, and you can't tell us, and you don't seem to know it yourself, how is this even a productive conversation?
I'll give you a more concise statement that you can respond to. The possibility of God exists.
Okay, what is God? Like, I mean, okay, so you said you can't define it. I mean, let me tell you, I would say that Zog exists. Is it possible that Zog exists? And you're like, okay, well, to see if Zog exists or not, we first have to identify what Zog is. I'm like, okay, Armin, you're saying Zog exists. It's possible that Zog exists. And like, okay, what is Zog? I'm like, I cannot define it for you. So how would you treat that statement? Is it possible that something that I have not defined exists? Yes, I will agree with you, okay? You have not defined X. Without definition, is it possible that this X thing that I have not defined exists? Yes, there's a greater than zero chance that this thing that you have not defined exists, okay? So now where do we go from here?
I understand what you're saying. All right, let's define God as the idea that there is something that connects us beyond matter, something beyond what we can explain, something that gives things meaning, something that makes it so that love isn't just chemicals. Love is a thing that transcends that.
So God is a desire.
Subjective. That's
not what I said. So you gave us a list of things that we don't know if they could. So you gave us a list of things, and I don't know if those lists of things are necessarily related or not, right? So you said something that is beyond material, and something that gives us meaning. I think that comes with the assumption that material things cannot give us meaning. I mean, I'm trying to understand you, okay? I'm not trying to make fun of you or dismiss you, okay? I'm really trying to have a good discussion here, okay? Because this seems to come up with the assumption that we cannot find meaning within the material world, right? So I still don't understand. Is that what you're saying? Like, yes, well, something, do we need? Yeah, go on.
It goes back to my original point that consciousness can't be explained by materialism. Neurons and matter cannot explain consciousness alone. And this is what I study. I'm an AI engineer, and so I work closely with neural networks, and so.
But yeah, okay, there's two possible. So Justin is asking you why. There's two possibilities here. Two possibilities. Either you're right, and consciousness cannot be explained with the material world, okay, or it can, okay, and we just and you're wrong. Like, we have the explanation, right? And there are a lot of, like, I looked into this a little bit, and there seems to be a lot of theories, and these theories are keep getting expanded on and worked on and improved on, and it's moving towards a direction. But let's say, like, you're correct and it cannot be. Okay, is our failure as humans, okay, because we humans, we have limitations, right? Like, we have some tools and try to figure out things out, but we are limited in understanding the material world. Is our failure to explain consciousness, does that necessarily mean that something beyond matter is required to explain consciousness? What if our failure to explain consciousness is only a sign of our failure, not a sign of anything beyond material?
But that statement in itself is saying that the current knowledge we have can't explain it. And really what I'm trying to show here is how analogous that is.
That's just our failure.
You're using your current...
That's the limitation of the human mind and the human scientific method to date, to this point. That is not a sign, that is not evidence of anything beyond matter.
Yes, but
Sorry, Justin,
we don't know. And what I'm trying to do is draw the parallel between that and the idea of whether or not God exists. In this discussion, the first thing that should be said is that we don't know if God exists or not.
Right. But the question is, should we believe in a God? Because just not knowing if the God exists doesn't get you to the finish line. We need to know if we should believe in a God, right? So, theoretically, your argument is that consciousness points towards the existence of a God. And I'm trying to figure out how. How do you get from consciousness to a God? Is it just a God of the gaps? You don't know how something works, therefore God?
It seems to me that you're just trying to say, make us admit that there is a chance that this entity exists. And I think our position has always been that everything is possible, but we won't believe in it until there's an evidence.
Right.
Like, if you want us to admit that something,
But then your show should be...
We already have that position.
Experience, not the atheist.
No, that's your misunderstanding of what atheism means. Okay, so this is a problem. Okay, so I will give you that. Okay, anything except anything that any unfalsifiable claim that you come up and give us here, there is a more than zero chance that it does exist. Okay, the problem is that the chance, because there is infinite number of unfalsifiable claims that I could make. So the chances, I would attribute a chance of 1 over infinity to each one of them, which is epsilon, which is as close to 0 as you can get. I will basically treat it as 0, even though it's not 0. Okay, that does not make me. So when you say that, then you should call yourself agnostic rather than atheist, is because you don't understand the definition of atheism. Agnosticism and atheism are not mutually exclusive. Atheism is not necessarily the claim that there is no God. Atheism is simply a lack of belief in God. If I don't believe in God, I'm an atheist. Now, regards to gods, there are multiple definitions of gods, and towards certain definitions of gods, you could be a Gnostic atheist towards them, and certain definitions of gods, so for example, unfalsifiable definitions of God, you could be an agnostic atheist to those. So we have Gnostic atheism and agnostic atheism. If you define God to me in a way that is self-contradictory, for example, the tri-omni God, which is the God of all Abrahamic religions, are defined in a way that are self-contradictory. Towards that God, I'm a Gnostic atheist. But towards a deistic God, for example, or any other God that is unfalsifiable, towards that God, I'm an agnostic atheist, which means I will treat that God in the same way I treat vampires, Santa Claus, Peter Pan, the farting turtle, Russell's teapot, the dragon in the Carl Sagan's dragon in the garage, the flying spaghetti monster. All of these could be real, but I treat them as if they're not.
Okay, again,
that's actually
the point
spot on with my opinion as well.
The point of what...
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
...was for us to both... That's okay. The point of what I was saying at the beginning was just for us to all admit that we don't know if there is or isn't a God. And then I wanted to get into the deeper discussion. I would just like for us to objectively admit that we don't know if there is or isn't.
Would you say that the same thing about Santa Claus, for example?
But again, I'm pointing to things that can be seen as pointing to God, such as consciousness.
Right, but you're not actually talking about that.
Infinite probability. With the law of infinite probability, yes, I do actually have to entertain the idea that there could be a Santa Claus, as silly as it is. But it's a bit different when you talk about God.
But the God claim is as silly. Okay, so yeah, I will do the same thing. Okay, I will say like, yes, we have to entertain that the chances is not zero, but it's so close to zero that we could label it as silly, and we will continue living our lives as if it's not real, right?
And really, comparing God to Santa Claus isn't actually a fair comparison, because God is a theological concept found in various religions.
I agree. Santa Claus is more likely. I agree. Santa Claus is actually, God is a sillier argument, because at least I'm not going outside of space and time. It's actually more in line with what we understand about how the world works. As contradictory it might be, as less contradictory than the idea of God.
Yeah, a fat man that can defy the laws of physics is way more reasonable than the God hypothesis.
I think that, first of all, I said that God and Santa aren't the same because God arises in many.
Right. We disagreed though. Did you catch that part?
Santa Claus. What?
Right. We disagreed with your statement. We're saying Santa is more likely, right? It takes less assumptions to believe in a Santa than a God, because you need to bake in all kinds of assumptions the minute you introduce a God. You need to bake in, why did God create? Is there just one of them? If there's only one, why is there one? Why is there not a million of them? Is the God good? Does the God give us an afterlife? Does the God care about us? Is the God even alive? It could be possible that there was a God that poofed everything into existence and then someone took his ass out. There's so many concepts of God that it's silly just to appeal to a God that you like without actually considering all the other terrible God hypotheses. And I think it's more likely that Santa Claus exists than God exists. And right now, the only argument you're having is that consciousness points to that God, but you can't define what God is, and you can't define why consciousness points to that God. Instead, you've redirected the conversation for like the last 10 minutes on trying to compel us to admit that basically anything is possible. Like it's possible that there could be a God, but you already know our position. Our position is that it is possible, but we have no reason to believe that it's true. So we need a reason to believe that it's true before we're willing to accept it. Just like it's possible that there's a tooth fairy, but you have no reason to believe in the tooth fairy until you find the evidence.
I would say, because there was a lot of things in what you just said, I would say objectively God is more likely because the concept of a transcendent being explains the origins of existence, consciousness, and morality, whereas Santa Claus
doesn't. It actually makes it worse.
Makes it way worse.
Reality.
It makes it worse. The God explanation actually creates a bigger problem than the problem that it's trying to solve. It explains a consciousness that is at least material, and we could come up with theories for it, but a consciousness so mysterious beyond. It actually tries to solve consciousness by introducing a different consciousness that is more mysterious than the consciousness that we're trying to explain. That is beyond space and time. How is that explanation of anything?
Yeah, because our consciousness, every evidence we have states that our consciousness is a derivative from the brain. And you're trying to tell us that there's a consciousness out there that is not part of a brain. It has no physical manifestation. It's completely immaterial. And this is completely in opposition from what we see from all of our observations. But then you also have to bake in the fact that if we had this thing that gave us consciousness, it cared so much to create us, then he screwed up. He made all kinds of problems. Like the earth randomly executes 100,000 inhabitants a year on average through natural disasters. Why would we believe in a God that is like so asleep at the wheel that this is the conscious experience that he created for us?
Also, if consciousness is a problem, isn't God's consciousness also a problem, a bigger problem?
It's even
How are we
bigger.
going to solve
Yeah.
that? How are we going to solve that problem?
Just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
What you said about consciousness arising from things we observe isn't true.
I'm sorry.
Science can't explain consciousness.
Yeah, but you
Who
can't
said
either.
that?
Whatever, even if it couldn't, it doesn't seem like there's any other way to, like, when people say science can't explain something, first of all, usually they're wrong, because many times science actually explains the thing that they say they can't. But even if they're right, then we don't know, because like, I've never seen somebody actually identify correctly something that science can't explain, and then they are it takes a huge level of arrogance to think that you can explain something that the entire scientific community cannot explain. Like, if the proper position to have, if science cannot explain something, is okay, then we have no idea. Like, we can know. Don't make a claim. Do not make a claim. Just wait.
Right. Yeah. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean you can insert God into it. Right. Like, if I said, because we can't explain consciousness, I'm going to invent, there's these magic unicorns, they're consciousness granting unicorns, and they are the explanation for consciousness. Every time somebody is born and they reach the age of 6 months, the consciousness unicorn comes around and magically grants them consciousness. This is equally as valid as the argument you're laying down for consciousness. But you would inherently say that my explanation is silly. But it's no more silly than the one you're doing. All you're saying is there's something I don't know, so I'm going to insert my imagination into the gap. This is God of the gaps. That's all this is.
Again, there was a lot there that you said. Some of it had fundamental issues.
There was.
Some of it is valid. I don't know. There was a lot there. I think that there's a fundamental issue here in how people are viewing God. I mean, are we imagining?
I wouldn't address anything I said either. You notice how, like, Arm and I are responding to the things that you say, and then when we respond to what you say, you just move on to something else without actually addressing our rebuttals. That's not really like an honest way to have dialogue. What you're not doing is having dialogue. You're just fishing for like a new topic that you could move to, and then you want us to respond to it. But like, if you want to have honest dialogue, you have to respond to the things that we said as well. Don't just say that was problematic and move on.
All right. Could you restate it in a more concise way?
Yes, you're doing a God of the gaps argument. You're saying there's something I don't know, therefore God. But I could use that for anything. I can say we don't know consciousness, therefore there's a consciousness unicorn. It's not a God, it's just a consciousness unicorn. It's a product of the universe. It's part of the eternal universe. And every time an infant reaches the age of 6 months, the consciousness unicorn comes around and grants its consciousness. Given the argument that you're using, my argument for the consciousness unicorn is equally as valid, which means if your God is only as valid as the consciousness unicorn, it's not a good argument.
No, because God isn't what grants the consciousness. God is what makes that possible. God is that.
No, the consciousness unicorn makes it possible.
I would say my farting
Well, you could rename God the consciousness unicorn and say that. That's really no different than what I'm saying. It makes it so silly.
The reality is consciousness is a derivative of materialism. That's the reality of the world. That's why we never see consciousness outside of the material world. We've tried. We've done out-of-body experiments where we stimulated people's brain using DMT and deep brain stimulation, and then we quizzed them and tested them to see if their consciousness left their body, and it never did. We've done near-death studies. Sam Parnia did near-death studies from 2008 to 2014, and then he did another project from 2015 all the way to 2023, the AWARE project and the AWARE project number 2, where they literally took people from cardiac arrest that came back to life who claimed to have out-of-body experiences and tried to validate if they were actually having out-of-body experiences, and they couldn't do it. All the data we have suggests that people are a product of materialism. Our consciousness is materialism. My dog's consciousness is materialism. The turtle's consciousness is materialism. All the way down to the lowest level of consciousness, bacteria or ants. These various levels of consciousness are derivative of material. Until we can demonstrate that consciousness can exist without materialism, I have no reason to believe that there is a consciousness outside of materialism that caused all things to be.
I mean, even the word material demonstrate requires a material medium. So I don't know.
The problem with what you just said is your claim assumes materialism is the only valid framework, but the nature of consciousness remains one of the biggest unsolved questions in science and philosophy.
Unsolved. Okay, why is it that Luis, I don't understand why people think unsolved means that they could insert whatever. Okay, unsolved. Yeah, even if it is unsolved, that doesn't mean that you could shove in your mythology or your mumbo jumbo in the middle of it. Because as soon as every time you see, like, how is the God of the gaps still a thing? Right? I think atheists have demonstrated if you want to shove a God where something cannot be explained, then we could shove whatever else we want in there. Like, that's such an easy point to understand.
Straw manning my argument. You're framing it into something it isn't to make it seem silly.
Show me how I made a straw man. It is
silly.
The God of the gaps is basically, you're doing a classic example of God of the gaps. This is, yeah.
Here is the fundamental issue with how this show is set up. You make it so I have...
Okay, we don't care about the meta. We don't, listen, you can keep your God of the gaps. We'll find you a gap to shove your God. We don't want to hear any more circular reasoning about the God of the gaps. And I think it's approaching 8 o'clock now. And so we're at the end of our show at this point. So Louis, we really appreciate you coming up and talk to us about consciousness. I think you might want to rethink the God of the gaps argument. That's not a strong argument for God. You can make that argument for literally anything.
Right.
I think we lost him.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, come back next week, friend.
I just want to say, this is the second threat to the only God recognized by the ACA community today. First, we had your rocks, and now we're adding a unicorn. Okay, so I see this I see this as a challenge. I do not appreciate it.
You know, it's funny.
Farting turtles in the chat, everybody. My God.
I never meant for Doug and Sharon to take off the way that they did. Initially, I did a live stream suggesting that all the benefits of following Jesus you can get with a pet rock. And people loved it. It went into the stratosphere, and now we've got rock gods. But with that,
that's for your channel.
Right. Oh, yeah, sure. Fair enough.
I'm kidding.
Let's cover some super chats, and then we'll do our final announcements. We've got a super chat from Godwin, says, praise Doug and universal farting turtle, or universe farting turtle. Big W for the universe farting turtle, by the way. Yes. And Jason Freer, thank you for the $6.99, says, it's rumored that Doug and Sharon Stone will make an appearance at BajaCon. Will Armin be there selling his calendar of glamour shots?
Oh, I can't. But I appreciate you wanting me to be there. Thank you, guys. That's sweet.
I did plan on being there if I could make it. I have to double check my calendar, but I'm hoping to be at BajaCon. Pat again with a super chat. Thank you so much, Pat. So this sounds like words don't mean words again. I think you're referring to the previous caller, and I think you're right. There's a lot of that with theists, right? As long as words don't have meanings, they can mean anything you want them to. Last super chat from Master Sheeter. Thank you so much. Says, Armin, you're also a badass.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I appreciate that. Guys, I'm going to go. I'm gonna go ask some people to like criticize me or like say some mean words to me to fix all this boosted ego today. So I think I need an adjustment. I'll go ask my wife to fix that.
Oh, that'll take care of it real fast. And we got one more super chat. Sarah says, I gave all my money on Friday, assuming to me. Sorry for being cheap. Yeah, but we appreciate you, Sarah. We really do.
Yeah, thank you.
So before we do our outro, Armin, for anyone who's tuned in late, can you kind of plug some of your work so we know where to find you?
Oh, yes. I mean, my channel is Atheist Republic. Me and Susanna do cover like the most recent religion-related, mostly Islamic-related, to be honest, news around the world every Sunday. But I also do live streams throughout the week. So without Susanna, but a lot of people just prefer the show that we have with Susanna. So we are, so come check that out. And also my book, Why There's No God, check that out as well. And also, if you speak Persian, whether you're from Iran or Afghanistan or Tajikistan or any other Persian-speaking place, I have a channel called Jumhuriye Bi Khodayan, where we're basically the sister channel of Atheist Republic, but in Persian, for Persian-speaking audience. Mostly focused on Iran-related stuff and Islam as well, if you speak Persian. Yeah.
Well, holy shit, Armin. You come in here looking like that, speaking perfect English, Persian, knowing the Quran and Arabic. Save something for the rest of us, please. There's this.
Well, I don't know the Quran the way you know the Bible, Justin. I don't know. Like, I think like you said you're going to you're studying the Quran as well, right? Because I think like if you study the way that you understand the Bible and the way that you memorize it, with your mind, if you go study the Quran, I think you're going to be a major asset to fighting like Islamic bullshit as well, not just Christian bullshit. Because if you like, I don't know anybody that understands the Bible, memorize the Bible the way you have. So it would be very valuable if you actually do study the Quran. You're planning on doing that?
That's the plan. Yep.
Yeah, and so that would be amazing. So I'm gonna actually not just be subscribed to your channel, we'll watch those as well. The construction zone. So yeah, like I'm gonna spend time watching because I'm really focused mostly on Islam related stuff than Christianity. And I would love to see you get into Quran stuff if you. Yeah.
I'm certainly gonna do my best.
Active on your channel. You're very active, by the way, on your channel.
Very active. Yeah, I stream on Deconstruction Zone on YouTube and on TikTok, usually 3 nights a week, like 5-hour streams at a pop. And I'll debate anybody on religion, just like we do here. But obviously, my bread and butter is on, the biblical topics.
That's impressive. You're amazing. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being with us through all the audio problems tonight, guys. And I'm going to read the outro, and then we'll see you again shortly in our next episode. The prompt for this week was, if you forgot, what was God doing before he created the universe? Get your answers in the comments. It might be read at the beginning of next week's episode if it's good enough. And we want to thank our backups for helping tonight. Let's see, Scott Dickey.
Hey. This was quite a marathon episode here, and it was really cool being able to watch it from backstage. So it was a great performance, guys. Good show.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that, Scott.
Thank you. And thank you for saving us when we were having technical issues.
Oh, yeah. I helped a lot there, I'm sure.
You did. No, actually you did. Yeah.
And thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. Thank you, Armin. And it's always a pleasure being on screen with everybody at AXP. We'll see you again next week here on Sunday at 4:30 Pacific and 5:30 Eastern. And there's a third time zone that has escaped my memory. Mountain time zone.
Central, 4:30 Central.
4:30 Central. There we go.
That's it.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Everyone around you buys. You think it's setting up your business. Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.